You are now live, Chair.
Thank you. Good morning. I call this regular meeting of the Kentucky Board of Education to order. This meeting is being conducted virtually. We welcome certainly all of our members and certainly all those viewing remotely. The public may view the meeting via the link provided in the advertised agenda. Just a few announcements about conducting virtual meetings. This meeting must comply with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. Therefore, Kentucky Board of Education members participating virtually must ensure that their video is streaming and that they can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. Members, please mute your microphone when not talking. However, remember that all discussions must be broadcast to the public, so be sure your microphone is not on mute when you speak. Every time you speak during the meeting, please unmute your microphone, state your name, and take a short pause. For any items that require a vote, a roll call will be necessary to record each member. At that time, the member should state their name, pause, then state, "I vote yes," or "I vote no." Also, as a reminder, please silence any other electronic devices that may cause disruption to your sound feed. Now I will ask Dr. Jones to call the roll.
Good morning. Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth, present.
Harold McKinney.
Harold McKinney is present.
Justin Pate.
Justin Payton here.
Julie Pyle.
Julie Pyle, present.
Randy Poe.
Randy Poe present.
Chair Sharon Robinson.
Sharon Robinson, present.
Lee Todd.
Lee Todd present.
Steve Trimble.
Steve Trimble present.
Vice Chair Lou Young.
Lou Young, present.
Harper Blake.
Harper Blake, present.
Alfonso de Torres Nunez.
Alfonso de Torres Núñez, present.
Secretary Jamie Link.
Jamie Link present.
President Aaron Thompson.
Aaron Thompson here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will hear a report from the Education Professional Standards Board, and Vice Chair CJ Fryer joins us for that report.
Chair Robinson, I believe that Vice Chair Fryer was anticipating speaking at 9:10, so he has not joined us yet. So if you could move to the next report, he will be on shortly.
I sure will. That brings us to Dr. Thompson to present a report from the Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be with everybody today. And as you all know, this is the season. I'll call it not only season for cold and snow, it's the season for the legislature to be in, and budget season. All of us are waiting, anticipating. Hopefully we all have a good budget. Wish that for you all as well as we do post-secondary. I'm here to talk a little bit about what's been going on in post-secondary since the last time I gave this report. Happy to say that more students are enrolling, earning certificates, and completing degrees, especially at our community colleges. Our graduation rates are up. At our community colleges now, we have over 50% of those students starting that are graduating. 6 out of 10 undergraduate students now graduate debt-free. We're screaming this from the rooftop. You've heard all the stuff around that students are accumulating $120,000 plus in debt. Well, that's not here in Kentucky if that's happening anywhere, but surely not here. We're going in the other direction. 6 out of 10 of every one of our graduates from our public institutions are graduating with absolutely no debt. And if you think about it and break it down with our community colleges and four-year institutions, 74% of those at the community and technical colleges are graduating with no debt, Dr. Pate, and 46% of our four-year publics are graduating with no debt. Interesting enough, those that do have debt, in the last 5 years, the debt has been reduced by 34%. So this is due obviously to some generous funding from the General Assembly. Hopefully they keep that up, but also that our campuses are putting twice more from their whatever they get from tuition and state dollars to helping students succeed as they're getting from federal and state financial aid. So we're very proud of that number. Total statewide post-secondary enrollment once again this year. As you know, Kentucky was the first state to bounce back from COVID in post-secondary enrollment, and we keep it going. This year we saw, once again over last year, a 5% increase in undergraduate enrollment. A 6% growth happened at our Kentucky Community and Technical College system, and followed by 6% at our independent colleges and 3% at our public universities. Overall, and I know there's a former superintendent there will like hearing this, the dual credit enrollment rose 6%. This is all good news for the future of us putting more degrees in Kentucky. Our first-time undergraduate enrollment increased 4% statewide. And I have to tell you, this is really, and we, as you know, for many, many years, I've talked about the declining college going from high school into college. Well, in the last couple of years, we've seen that turn around. So I really want to do a shout out to those in the ed continuum, the Kentucky Advising Academy, and all the work that we're doing, even with the bridge programs. These items are really working, and we're getting more young people coming out of high school going in to get a credential. It may not be a 4-year credential, Jamie, but it's a credential that matters, and we count only those that matter if they are paying the living wage afterwards. We're measuring now from a 2017 high school graduates, what they've done these many years later. If they graduate with a baccalaureate degree, they're making $13,000 more per year than those that just graduated from high school. So once again, this shows that getting a college degree matters. You know, Madam Chair, I think it's important for us to, or at least for me, to ask once again for our continued partnership, because what we're doing in connecting our P12 with our post-secondary really has shown to be effective in more ways than one. If you look at dual credit, we're almost at that 50% attainment mark we set several years ago to get to it. And these students that are taking dual credit are being very successful in college. And the same we could say about those kids that are going to college and get the kind of inputs that they need to be successful. And when our college counselors working with our high school counselors and really focusing on what it means to make sure a young person is college ready, not just college ready, but make sure we're working with our institutions that they become student ready. And that's what we're doing at CPE with our institutions. Then the outcome, I think, is really good for Kentucky. A lot of stuff going on, bragging a little bit. We were ranked #1 again in retention gains, #1 in persistence gains, #2 in completion gains. And this continues to happen. It's a trend now. It's been 3 or 4 years in a row. But, you know, one of the things that I can tell you is that when we are looking at the outcomes for our workforce and for our economy, it matters. Another last shout out, and I'm happy to take questions after this, will be to my partners with the SWAT. That's Secretary Link, Secretary Noel, Chamber of Commerce President, your esteemed commissioner, as well as Ryan Quarles and others that are really focusing on how we connect education truly with the outcomes of the state economically and with the workforce. These kind of partnerships gets us where we need to go. And with that, Madam Chair, there's a whole lot more stuff going on, as you all know, but I won't take up your morning giving you all of it. So I'll be quiet and answer any questions that you may have of me.
Well, Dr. Thompson, thank you for that report, and I think you deserve to brag all you care to. That was a wonderful, inspiring report. I do want to loop back to one particular matter. That transition to post-secondary and careers seems to be far more functional and the impact far greater than I think we talk about. So I do believe that we need to make certain the General Assembly and the Kentucky public and our students get the acknowledgement that they deserve for making that connection, that transition really, really rich, viable, productive. The impact on our economy can't be overstated, and the impact on the quality of life for our students as they go into adulthood is just tremendous. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Absolutely. And let me just say a statement about that, even in the importance of what this really means. When you have something going downhill sliding, as it had been for years and years, it's hard to stop it. So the amount of energy it takes to even stop it from sliding and keeping it still is tremendous. The amount of energy to stop it and move it back forward is absolutely an accomplishment, I'll just say. And that takes a whole lot of people working together to make happen. And I don't think it can be understated that we need to be talking about this much more than we were, than we are. So I fully agree. I think the other thing, it's really behooves all of us to talk about what it means for us to really start connecting all these things together. We have a lot of bills that's looking at accountability and so on, but when we think about what we're doing with our graduate profile and, and the profile of a learner, all of those items are nationwide cutting edge things. I just don't think we talk enough. And I may sound like a marketeer, and I'm okay. I'm happy to take that. But I don't think we really talk about the richness of what that means for Kentucky's education.
Thank you so much. Other questions or comments for Dr. Thompson? Yes, Dr. Pate.
Yeah, I appreciate so much of what you do, Dr. Thompson, but just that last piece you were talking about, I think is so critical for all of us in the education period, because I think what we battle a lot is the anecdotal story that just takes over all of the data. We've got all this data to show that we're doing all these great things from P to 16. Yet a few anecdotal stories in the legislature can set us back, when it comes to proving our worth, maybe. So I think having these key talking points is critical, and we talk about it as a board, what are our talking points with the legislature, but these key stats are so important to help driving a good understanding of what we're doing forward. And I really I feel like you always do a good job of having those things in your back pocket. You put them out there for us, but you've always got them ready to go. And I think that's something we all need to emulate.
Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. So Dr. Thompson, why don't you ask some of your folks to please send us a one-pager of the key accomplishments.
In my president's report, I think you'll have those. It's a one-pager there. So yeah, absolutely.
Fab. Thank you so much. Other comments? Dr. Thompson, thanks for joining us. Thanks for that report. And please keep up the good work.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You all do the same.
Thank you. CJ Fryer has now joined us, the Vice President of the Education Professional Standards Board. CJ, thanks for joining us, and please, we look forward to your report.
Good morning, Chair Robinson, Vice Chair Young, and all of our awesome Kentucky Board of Education members. Appreciate all you do and hope you're having a great Thursday. Actually saying hello from Louisville. I'm at the Galt House right now. Our daughter in the 6th grade at Beechwood made all-state choir. So big shout out to all of our amazing state students throughout the Commonwealth who are here in Louisville right now for band or choir all-state. We're really excited to celebrate them. And sorry for any noises you might hear in the background. We brought the whole family down. So I'm in a hotel room with 3 other young kids. and my wife here. So Chair Amber Snell does send her regards. She was looking forward to giving the presentation herself this morning. She did want me and gave me permission to share that her husband did unexpectedly have a heart procedure this morning, which is why I am here. So if you guys can just send positive thoughts, prayers for Family's Way, I know that she would appreciate that a lot. So on to my report. The EPSB, we finished out our 2025 with our December 16th meeting. At that meeting, EPSB heard about the launch of a new artificial intelligence agent called Ask Diego. Hopefully you all know who Ask Diego is. Just go to GoTeach Kentucky.com. He's that cute little triangle guy that I definitely think we need to get like a full life mascot costume for. But anyway, Ask Diego is being used on the GoTeach Kentucky website to answer questions from all of our website visitors. We found lots of great success with it already. EPSB has also continued our educator preparation provider spotlight that Chair Snell has kicked off in the last year to highlight the amazing efforts that are underway in our EPPs and our Kentucky colleges and universities. We had Dr. Todd McCardle from EKU and Dr. Cleta Parsley from the University of Pikeville, both at that meeting to provide presentations on the great work that's happening at each of their institutions. And that EPP spotlight, I know not all of the open session stuff is always top riveting things for people to feel like they need to go back in and watch, but that is definitely a highlight for me. I love our EPP spotlight. So just a friendly reminder to everyone watching and all of our awesome board members here that the KBE Media Portal, of course, does have that archived if you want to see their presentation. And Kentucky Teacher also published an article covering their presentations. As far as 2026, we kicked off the new year with a virtual meeting on January 5th and then an in-person work session on January 21st. During that work session, members dove into current initiatives around educator recruitment, development, preparation, certification, and ethics. This was a really fantastic way to start our new year off together as a board and really focus on our mission to advance the teaching profession and support the growth of educators throughout our Commonwealth. Our EPSB board will meet next on February 17th. We've also had multiple members sign up to assist with this year's Educators Rising State Conference, also in Louisville. This is a Kentucky's one-of-a-kind event dedicated to cultivating the next generation of our outstanding educators, high schoolers, right, even sometimes down to middle schoolers who are considering entering the greatest profession here of teaching. As a reminder, I think you all know, but the conference is March 5th at the Kentucky Exposition Center in Louisville. And if any KBE members are free to attend this year's conference, especially as we're going to have a good EPSB presence, I really encourage you to reach out to Dr. Brewer, and she'll provide more information about how you can help out that day and be there. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that any board members have.
Thank you so much, CJ, and please assure Amber that we're with her in fervent prayer and claiming a good outcome.
Amen.
Are there questions for CJ? Lou?
Hi, CJ. I've been following the certification bands change that your
Yes.
work group has been presenting, and I saw that LSAC got to hear about those. Where are we in that process, and how's the feedback going?
Yeah, so that was actually a decent chunk of our work session time. Mr. Todd Davis was able to present the most up-to-date findings. Dr. Brewer, I don't want to misspeak on the exact timelines. I don't have my notes in front of me as I was not planning on being here this morning. Do you have any of the specifics offhand, Dr. Brewer, on what that potential timeline is going to be looking like?
So they are still working toward a June recommendation to the board, but because there is a significant amount of consensus building, it may be sooner than that they can bring that recommendation forward.
I feel certain people in the field will be happy about the additional flexibility that the increased bands will afford.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree, Vice Chair Lou, and I just do want to echo that task force has done such a phenomenal job. We've had great representation from all different stakeholders on that. And I know they've been very thoughtful and intentional in the recommendations they presented. Our biggest thing, of course, is still protecting and elevating the teaching profession and not lowering the bar. And I don't think anything that we're recommending is even close to that. In fact, it's, to your point, giving greater flexibility, doing what's right for students and schools. So it's going to be really exciting changes. Overdue a little bit, I think, too, but we're happy that we're taking care of it now.
It is really, really gratifying to see the work that we're doing together. The certification band effort is just amazing. And it will represent a huge check mark on the get it done column because it needs to be done. And the profession is is really authorized. It's in the wheelhouse of the folks who know best about how to get it done. And I feel our collaborative research effort will produce insights and suggestions that will be so informative to our work going forward, focused on retention. And is this a career that can hold its talent because it's utilizing its talent to the maximum and fulfilling professional aspirations of our colleagues in the profession? Other comments? Yes, Alfonso.
So I have to say, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you mentioned about the Ask Diego and the Go Teach Kentucky. So credit to where should be going, where you or EPSB or the Office of Technology at KBE. I was just curious, and I played actually with the tool in 5 major languages: Spanish, French, German, Arabic, and Russian. And they all work fine. And what is more important, languages like Spanish, French, and German, we are talking about alphabetic languages. When it comes to Arabic, and Chinese, and Japanese, and Russian, we are talking about languages that use other type of systems. So even using those characters, the tool still works and works well. So I want to really appreciate very much the work put into this. And piggybacking on what Chair Robinson said, I think it's also accessibility, making access to people who may be interested in our profession. I think this makes things accessible in a way that perhaps we didn't have before. So credit to wherever it needs to go. But as a person who is multilingual, good job.
I'm so thankful to hear that feedback. I appreciate you taking the time to explore all that Ask Diego has to offer. And if you do notice anything that falls short of our expectations, please let us know that, because we want to make it the best product we can. Thanks so much for that feedback.
Well, thank you.
Further comment? CJ, it sounds like you've got a busy day ahead, as they all are, I suspect. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And again, we will keep Amber in our thoughts.
Great. And I appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you. And I look forward to being together with some of you in those committees that are coming up.
Oh, yeah, we get started.
Yeah,
I think
it's going to be
week.
soon. Yeah, it'll be great. We're looking forward to the work together. Appreciate you all.
Me as well. Take care. Thank you so much. Now we will turn to Secretary Jamie Link, the Secretary of Education and Labor, to provide his report. Secretary Link.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members. Great to see you. Wish we were in person, but great to see you nonetheless. My report will be relatively brief. And like Dr. Thompson said, I think the legislative session is certainly top of mind right now, and in particular, the budget. As all state agencies are watching to see how the budget progresses through the General Assembly. The governor made his recommendation, of course, and then the House has dropped their budget. So we're keeping a close eye on all of that. Our cabinet's agenda is relatively light when it comes to legislation, but of course, we're watching numerous bills that either impact our cabinet directly or indirectly. So it's a day-to-day thing. And we also watch the legislative calendar to count down the days that are remaining in the session. Just briefly, the temporary federal shutdown had a very minor impact on our cabinet, basically just some reports being delayed. We saw no funding issues or anything like that. So glad that was resolved in fairly short order. Obviously, the Pre-K for All initiative that Governor Beshear has put forth is very important to him, to us, in the workforce area, because we certainly recognize the educational benefits of pre-kindergarten and becoming ready for primary education. But we also look at it from the workforce angle. the ability for parents to have a safe place for their children to go so that they can go to work and pursue their career. So I think there's a double benefit to pre-kindergarten, and we're hopeful that the General Assembly will support that. And again, we'll be watching that very closely as we go through the session. I've mentioned before, one of our big projects in the cabinet with our Office of Unemployment Insurance is replacing a 30-plus-year-old antiquated computer system. Right now, we're on schedule, on budget, and we anticipate turning on the employer component of the new system in May of this year, which will be a significant milestone for our Office of Unemployment Insurance. And we anticipate turning on the benefits or the individual claimants portion of the system in early 2028. So that's going to take a little more time, but we're trying to expedite that as much as possible. The last thing I just wanted to mention to the board is we have been working with and supporting the Department of Corrections and KCTCS on a proposed project that they have before the General Assembly to build and create a reentry campus at the North Point Training Center in Boyle County. This will allow for inmates who are transitioning from incarceration to society to obtain job training, skills training prior to release, so that when they are released, they can start a new career and a new path. So we're very excited about that. We're very hopeful that the General Assembly will see the real benefit of this. From the workforce perspective, we need workers desperately. We have so many jobs available that this is just another talent pool that we're hopeful to tap, and really excited about what the possibilities of this could be. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Chair Robinson,
Sorry.
I believe you're.
Thank you. The reentry campus project seems to me so critical, because I think the biggest vulnerability to many inmates is that employment link.
Yes.
I mean, from coming out of prison to coming out of incarceration to employability seems to be such a vulnerability, and you know, they lose hope, they lose confidence, and we lose workers. So are we working with employers to understand the opportunities, the benefit of making sure that these citizens aren't driven into despair that might lead to reincarceration?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, and I couldn't agree with you more. I believe a good job, a good career can address so many issues in society. But to your point, of course, this would be done in conjunction with the Office of the Parole Office.
Yes.
So that there's somewhat wraparound services there with the job training, and then the support after release by the Office of Probation and Parole to support that person if they need that support. And certainly on the employer side, the governor created the Reentry Employers Council, and that is specifically designed to engage employers and educate them on the benefits of considering reentry individuals for jobs. These are people who may have made a mistake, but they have skills, they have talents that can be very useful to employers. So like we do with many other aspects of workforce development, the employer engagement is perhaps the most critical thing, because the employers are the ones with the jobs. So educating employers about reentry individuals, about disabled individuals, about veterans who are transitioning out of the military. All of these populations are a very rich source of talent that we want to make sure Kentucky employers are aware of and take advantage of those talents. So I couldn't agree more with you that the getting into a good career and a good job will change people's lives, I believe. So we're anxious about the prospect of this project.
Me as well. We have a question from Julie Powell.
Yes, thank you so much, Secretary Link. So I just wanted to share, so I do quite a bit of traveling and I'm a Rotarian. So I go to a lot of
Yes.
Rotary meetings in other states. And in the state of Delaware, the Rotarians took on the initiative of the pre-K for all and went to the state legislators and advocated for funding. And they were able to get quite a bit of funding because as community members, we realized the benefit of the pre-K for all because it's for the education system, you start eliminating a lot of remediation costs, which is a huge down the road time saver for the whole education system, and the benefits for the community because you're enabling workforce to be able to go to work, and the benefits to the individuals and the community as itself because it builds community and type things. So I really would like to see this initiative keep going and really encourage you to engage the community service organizations to help advocate for it.
And I appreciate that, Julie. And we have engaged with several nonprofits. Sam Flynn has been the executive director, and I don't know how many miles he's put on his car over the past several months traveling around Kentucky to advocate for the project. We've had dozens of school superintendents who have provided their support. Dr. Fletcher was on the advisory board and attended many of the town hall meetings that were held across the Commonwealth. And we have been reaching out to employers and other organizations to voice their support for this. And I believe at one time, the number of emails that legislators were getting in support of pre-K for all were in the middle tens of thousands, to the point that I think some legislators said, please let us off the hook with this because we're getting flooded with emails. And that's the democratic process, right? The citizens are contacting their elected representatives to voice their support. So we're very hopeful. I think it can be a win-win-win all the way around. Certainly, they'll look at the fiscal impact, the budget for it. But I think it's too important, and I think it just elevates Kentucky to the next level when it comes to education and workforce development.
Thank you. Alfonso?
Hi,
Hi,
good morning,
Alfonso.
Secretary Link. I have a question, and yes, so it's understood. This comes from the point of how we all are the language that we speak. The reason why I'm saying is because many times these opportunities, as great as they are provided, many times they seem to forget individuals who are speaking other languages. And I'm saying this because imagine how would you feel when you have all the intentions to actually get back on track because of mistakes that you have made in your life, but the system is basically closed, or not just closed, simply not accessible because you have never had the opportunity to learn to speak the language of the system. So how can that impact, how that can impact later on in future choices, because you feel more isolated, you feel more despair, like Chair Robinson said, right? And in the end, you are forced to make choices because you don't know better, because you don't have access to better knowledge and better understanding and better possibilities. So my question is, what kind of supports have been put out there for people who are within that population, who speak other languages. And especially, you mentioned before something about people with special talents. When I speak a language, that's a special talent over there. And just to give you this brief idea, the Kentucky court system is flooded by needs of translators and interpreters and social workers who are able to reach to these people, to people who do not necessarily speak English, right? So what supports have been put out there for those individuals, and not just after the fact, but also before the fact in terms of prevention.
Right, and you're right, Alfonso. We do have a very diverse population in Kentucky. Spanish speaking, Swahili, several other languages that are spoken in Kentucky. And we try to work with employers to have individuals who speak those languages on their staff to help with the translations. And I view this somewhat similar to deaf and hard of hearing community or any other disability that people, you mentioned barriers. How can we address those barriers to make it easier? And I think a lot of that comes down to educating employers about they're missing out on some really robust talent pools because of one issue or another. So how can we help those employers bridge that gap and lower those barriers so that non-English speaking people with disabilities have a fair opportunity for the jobs that we have across the state. So your point is very well taken. We look at, even when we look at our websites and things, we look to making sure we have a Spanish translation for our web information and our regional workforce boards. Some have a greater population than others. So I believe the South Central Workforce Board in Bowling Green, I think English is certainly the first language that is spoken in that area, but Swahili is the second most populous language spoken in that region. So those are things that we're working on to try to lower those barriers and make it easier for people to connect with employers and employers to connect with people and overcome that language barrier.
If you are looking in the area of Louisville, there are several nonprofit organizations that are making a tremendous job over there, like Luce, Adelante, La Casita. I would be more than happy to connect you with them if you are willing to explore and you're interested to explore potential collaborations.
Absolutely. And our Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, we have connected with several nonprofits for this very issue. So we recognize it, we appreciate it, and we're making every effort, but would certainly welcome any input that you would have. And as a matter of fact, you and I talked briefly at a previous meeting about getting together, and I have not forgotten. So we will get together and have a much more in-depth conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Secretary Link. I have to say these reports just bring to mind what seems to be a very important strategy within the KBE connection, the connection with the Cabinet of Education and Labor, the connection with the post-secondary education community, the connection with EPSB, and the word that comes to mind is collaboration.
Yes, ma'am.
And, collaboration requires trust and humility. We all can do a good job, but we can do a way better job when we leverage the talent that exists across this community to make great things happen for Kentucky. Thank you for joining us and your report this morning. We thank you for your very diligent attention to the Department of Education and to this agenda, because it's an agenda that we share. We will now turn to Commissioner Fletcher for his report. Commissioner?
Thank you so much, Chair Robinson. I appreciate the opportunity. And the first part of my report is really going to be about reminding maybe those that are watching today a little bit about our United We Learn, our Kentucky United We Learn Council and our efforts there. So just as a reminder, and of course, people on the board are well aware of this, but also for those that may be watching, over the past few years, the Kentucky Department of Education has been working with the Kentucky United We Learn Council and a variety of stakeholders ranging from families, students, teachers, community members, business leaders, legislators, and education groups to reimagine the assessment and accountability in Kentucky. And again, the development of the Accountability Model Framework 4.0 was a collaborative and iterative process. As many of you remember, our 4.0 began with 4 prototypes. And then into not only 4 prototypes, but into 4 more frameworks, if you will. I would argue maybe 5 frameworks. There might have been a 4.1 in there along the way, but again, it was a shared, it was an extensive engagement with town halls, surveys, input. There were 9 town halls that provide a platform for open conversation, allowing over 600 stakeholders from various backgrounds to share their perspectives and concerns and aspirations. We also had a multilingual in Bowling Green. We had a group with that. We also had 8 at our other co-ops to have part of the town halls. But these sessions really fostered transparency and encouraged direct feedback, while multiple surveys with hundreds of participants captured a broader range of opinions, ensuring that the voices of those unable to attend in person were still heard. But by thoughtfully analyzing the input gathered from these avenues, the Kentucky United We Learn Council was able to identify critical themes and areas for improvement in our current system. This ongoing dialogue and inclusive approach were instrumental in refining the model, ultimately leading to a framework that reflects the collective insights and needs of everyone throughout the Commonwealth. The journey to Accountability Model 4.0 demonstrates how genuine participation and feedback can drive meaningful organizational change. And also, as I mentioned yesterday, we do have House Bill 257, which doesn't really get us to our original moonshot. And just as a reminder, it was to build a prosperous Kentucky. We will launch an accountability system that is meaningful and useful to all learners. But I will say it is an important first step, a launch, if you will, to get us closer to that landing. I do want to take an opportunity here to also thank Representative Tipton. Representative James Tipton yesterday in the committee meeting took time to emphasize the work of the Cool Council, the diversity of the group that's a part of that, in the primary and secondary education committee. And again, 257 began with Representative J.T. Payne, as a bill, I should say. It began as a bill, Representative J.T. Payne of Henderson County, who filed House Bill 257. And again, it was heavily influenced by the Kentucky United We Learn Council. And the bill includes locally developed indicators of quality, formerly known as local accountability, and state accountability that meets federal requirements. Local indicators of quality would include flexible options for districts to set their own indicators in collaboration with their communities. I am very thankful for the thousands of Kentuckians who have contributed to this piece of legislation, which passed out of committee yesterday. So residents from across the state did let us know what they wanted to see in their students' classrooms, whether it's by completing a survey, attending a town hall, or by participating on our council, on our Kentucky United We Learn Council. And these efforts have contributed to legislation that encourages collaboration among our districts and communities to ensure meaningful learning experiences for all students. I would like to emphasize also too, the legislative process is a long journey. This was an important first step to have it read in the committee and to have it pass out of the committee. And I'll have to double check to see where we are on our readings, but hopefully this will make it to the House floor. I will say there'll probably be other extensive discussions. I know there's a lot of interest as far as interim assessments. There's a lot of interest as far as adaptive assessments. Some other areas that we'll be bringing back forward in committees and talking to legislators will be the part about adding where chronic absenteeism was added and what impact that has. But we'll also have talk about the color system. One of the things that our committee, the Kentucky United We Learn Committee, really emphasizes that collaborative effort. And we're looking at how districts can work together. And we're not looking for that competition of sorting. We're really looking for a collaborative effort as we move forward. There are other parts that, again, I'll send some more points to our board a little bit later today talking about House Bill 257. That way you'll have the information in front of you. I'm sorry, next slide, please. This is something that, again, I love the opportunity to talk about my school visits that I've done over the past few months, a couple of months. And as you know, one of my priorities is to do school visits and to hear directly from students. Again, directly from students and administrators. I recently visited the Kentucky School for the Blind and the Kentucky School for the Deaf. The Kentucky School for the Deaf is committed to equipping deaf and hard of hearing students with linguistic, academic, social, and transition skills to reach their full potential. And the Kentucky School for the Blind is committed to providing comprehensive educational services to all Kentucky students who are blind and visually impaired. I will share a couple of stories. First of all, at my visit to KSD, I was watching students do meticulous work on refurbishing furniture in their carpentry class. I was so amazed by the attention to detail students were making. As a matter of fact, there's a beautiful Adirondack chair that was produced by a young lady there. It was unbelievable. And also, too, I wanted to share that, I don't know if you can see this or not. Here we go. KSD also laser engraved a plaque for us for the Kentucky Department of Education, and it was by the students of the Kentucky School for the Deaf. This is on display out in our hallway, or it will be back in just a few moments. But also, too, robotics. Our KSD students are competing in a robotics competition. I think it's the first robotics league group where they are programming robots to move wiffle balls to one area to another, and then also taking on that manual operations of those and remote control, but building those robots from the ground up. Again, the list goes on and on. I also want to commend Principal Petrie there. He has also put together a mini distribution center so students can kind of get that feel of getting a work order, making sure they pay attention to the work order, and then deliver materials out throughout KSD to teachers and others that may put in the work order. It was almost like their mini little Amazon setting, if you will. So again, so many great things there at KSD, but by the same token, opportunity at KSB. The Kentucky School for the Blind, I was able to go in classrooms. I think in my report in the board book and on the portal, you see a picture of me with some students there. But at KSB, I was able to not only visit classrooms, but I got to watch the elementary dress rehearsal for a Christmas program. The pianist, the young man that was playing piano, was phenomenal. Of course, one of my favorite parts were the handbells that the young students were doing. So that was so much fun. But also, too, we do have a bowling alley at KSB. And I must say that I am thankful that my partner was carrying me in the scores because I wasn't doing very well. So it is amazing to see how those students interact, how they are just so thankful for the opportunities they have. But again, I was definitely not the gifted bowler in the room, obviously. But again, the visit to KSD and KSB was a blessing for me, and I'm so thankful for that. Next slide, please. A little more of an update from, we'll start with KSB. I've included a few photos from recent events at the KSB. On the left is a picture from KSB's You Are the Music in Me concert. The 9th and 10th grade musicians presented an impressive program of solos, duets, and trios that showcase their growing skills, musicality, and confidence. Special recognition was given to 3 students who transitioned to new instruments this year, a great accomplishment. Pictured on the right is a small group of high school students who attended the KSB Entrepreneurship Summit. In addition to meeting peers with visual impairments from across the state and experiencing an empowering atmosphere centered on independence and leadership, students enjoyed meeting with Kyle Kuhn, a blind Paralympian. Students listened to his powerful story and asked questions, and even received signed copies of his book. Again, applause to Principal Peggy there, Sinclair Morris there, for the work that she's doing. She is so involved, and to our hearts still go out to the family and to KSB. I'm sorry, to KSB for the student that passed away earlier. Our hearts are with Anthony's family. Also for the Kentucky School for the Deaf. Next slide, please. Some great interactions here for KSD. The pictured at the left is the career and technical students visiting Bluegrass Community Technical College to explore robotics and advanced manufacturing programs. Students toured instructional labs, observed demonstrations, and learned about current technologies used in modern manufacturing careers. On the right is a picture from when middle and high school colonels attended the showing of FDR's Very Happy Hour at Actors Theater of Louisville. The experience was particularly meaningful as students observed deaf representation on stage and witnessed ASL integration into a professional theatrical performance. Following the performance, students participated in an informal meet and greet with the actors, and this experience reinforced themes of communication, community, and accessibility throughout the arts. As I'm happy to say, you've seen some great examples of vibrant learning going on at both KSB and KSD. Next slide, please. From our area technology centers, I want to close my report with a few updates from the Kentucky's ATCs. First, at Breckinridge County ATC, which serves students from Breckinridge County, Cloverport, and Hancock County, is proud to announce that Kylie Carey has been selected for the rigorous 2-year New Core Technical Academy. Kylie will begin with 6 months of on-site training at New Core's Mill in Brandenburg, combining online coursework with hands-on experience in a world-class steel manufacturing environment. Also, she will then transition to New Core's Tuscaloosa, Alabama mill for the next 18 months, alternating 2 days a week in formal instruction with 2.5 days of paid real-world work. Kylie's training in both the industrial maintenance and welding programs has prepared her to build advanced technical skills, earn industry-recognized credentials, and step into a high-demand career. Congratulations, Kylie. I do have a special place in my heart for welders. We wish you the absolute best. Pictured on the right are students from Monroe County Area Technology Center, which serves students from Monroe and Metcalfe counties. These carpentry students embrace the 2025 holiday season by creating festive projects that showcased advanced craftsmanship. As you can see, the detail and we've seen this in our ATCs, the detail that our students put together is professional. It is amazing to see what our students are doing in our ATCs. But these projects not only show technical proficiency, they also bring joy and seasonal spirit to the local community, strengthening the connection between the ATC and the families they serve. So again, we see so many times that our career technical centers connect with the local community sometimes to solve problems or maybe supply needs or just to spread a little joy throughout the holiday season. So Chair Robinson, additional information is provided in my full report in the portal, and this concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Thanks so much, Commissioner Fletcher. We look forward to your report because it's always anchored by the service to the students and the service that we can be proud of, and it just inspires our further aspirations and determination. Are there questions for the commissioner? I'm going to risk not just, I think maybe bringing us to the reality of the moment. Those students and the work that they're doing inspires us. We will have a further conversation about student achievement a little bit later in this meeting. Commissioner, how can we bring a more full-throated message to the public and the General Assembly in particular about how precious this work is, how precious these students are, and help them be further inspired by these examples?
I think anytime that you connect legislators or people in general with our students, when they see what our students are doing, if they can't see directly, we need to tell the stories. You know, we've shared here about, first of all, and there's so many, for example, the Freight Box Challenge at Madisonville North Hopkins. You know, students in Madisonville North Hopkins are responsible now for, I think they're working on their second medical office that will be located in Liberia, Africa. They're making, they're problem solving. They're making real world change and attacking global issues and learning about cultures in other areas. And when people hear that story, they want to get involved. I'll go to Barron County. Our young man that who was coming to class in kindergarten and had a glove. One of our teachers took time to notice, but then got to work. And then 3D printed a hand for the student, a working robotic hand. And not only did he do that, but now that student is in a 3D printing class learning how to 3D print. When we hear stories like that, I think the best thing that we can do is not just, first of all, tell those stories of vibrant learning that's going on in schools. I'll share one more. For example, in Elizabethtown, and down in the area there, Dr. Pate, that you may be familiar with, I think it's Freeman Lake. The community there came in and said, you know what, we're having issues with garbage on our lake. We want our engineering class at Elizabethtown High School to design a lake Roomba to clean the lake, dump the garbage over to one area, and then clean it. So the kids are now problem solving with robotics, engineering, with GPS, to put those skills to work to benefit the community. But the community's coming to our schools. When we tell those stories of that vibrant learning, I think that really it opens eyes, because a lot of people have that view of education that it may have looked like back in the 1970s or 80s when we sat in beautiful little lines and asked questions. Now, I had some teachers that stepped out of those rows, if you will, from time to time, but we need to see more and more of that. And I think that's our best way, is to connect, let our legislators see what our kids are doing, whether it be defenses of learning and project-based learning, things of that nature, all these things that we call vibrant learning.
Other questions for the commissioner?
I guess not a question, but the statement, as you are advocating for our change in accountability, and as we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday, and you're going to give us a side-by-side on that, why are the legislators reluctant, in your view, of moving in this direction that we're talking about? Because I wholeheartedly agree 100% with you. And if they saw these things, I don't know. I guess that's my question. Why are we having a hard time selling? Now they want to say local indicators or whatever the wordsmithing is, but I guess that's my question.
And again, this is my opinion, for what it's worth. I think there is so many people across the state really latch onto that comparability. What do we look like are we a red school, orange school, yellow school, green school, blue school? And then how do we rank in order? It's a competition. I think there is such a feeling of we need to latch onto that. And I don't agree with that, but to latch onto that to show student progress, as opposed to look at what collaboration can do. I want to go back to Julie's story from Adair County, where the defenses of learning were going on in that community, and you have one of the communities that surrounded, or one of the school systems surrounded, to come in and work together and say, okay, how can we improve, or how can we do these defenses of learning for our kids? So I think it's really about, there's such a strong, I'll say, culture, if you will, of how do we compare? How do we rank against others? And honestly, that's in some of our school districts too. It's not just our legislators.
Right.
And there's many of our legislators actually latch on to the vibrant learning. So let me be very clear. Many legislators I talk to are fully on board with vibrant learning and giving students project-based learning, things of that nature. But just like even within our own schools, so many of our schools are so latched on to what color am I? Am I green? How close I am to blue? That they feel like that they're not having these other opportunities. But the districts that are making these monumental moves, and I think we're going to have an award winner a little bit later, will be able to talk about this, about their move. It's a direction that is just so beneficial to our kids to get them ready for what's next. So again, my opinion, Dr. Poe, is I think there's a culture that's of that comparability, competition as it relates to colors, and where do we fall?
I agree. And I think, that it just add to that, I think that is what holds us back. is
Mhm.
just what you said. You can't transform by holding on. You can't make a leap of faith across the mountain and carry all the baggage with you. It doesn't happen that way. So thank you for that. I appreciate your opinion there. Agree with it 100%. Thanks.
Very welcome.
Well, you know, we are not competing to see who can have the biggest piece of pie. We are striving to create a bigger pie so that everybody can have all that they need. It's two different world. That's a perspective. And I don't think those who perhaps are reluctant are opposed to making a bit bigger pie, but they have to make sure their piece is adequate or what they desire.
If I may add one more thing, Chair Robinson.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
please.
I think the emphasis on career technical and seeing the projects that are coming has brought our legislators a long way, because they're
Yes.
seeing vibrant learning, they're seeing projects that matter, they're seeing project-based learning. And now as we're getting that across the curriculum, that people are seeing more and more of that, because I think everybody that you can talk to will tell you, every legislator will tell you that kids are more than just a test score. They are much more than just a test score. Well, okay, let's put that into legislation. Let's make that move forward. Let's make that move forward to say, we really believe that kids are more than a test score. They are about transitioning over to a career. They're about, they're about art. They're about music. They're about demonstrations of learning. They're about those project-based, those passion projects they want to learn about, most about. I'll share a story with my own son. Once my son got to be a welder, the world just opened up, because he didn't have to worry about the ACT anymore. He was more worried about that technical document. Hated to read Macbeth and others. I'm sorry for those maybe English teachers, but when he got that technical manual, which has a much higher grade level equivalency on it,
Yeah.
he would spend hours reading that. And my daughter, who's in medical school, on the other hand, again, once she found that niche of wanting to be a doctor, the world opened up. And I think everybody can absolutely agree, our students are so much more than just a test score. Again, I'll get off my soapbox there. Thank you so much, Chair Robinson.
Alfonso.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on what Dr. Fletcher said, that our kids are more than just a test score. But I'm also going to caution, I really like to hear that our legislators are starting to listen, because we are talking in terms of career technical education. But let's not forget also about making the case for visual performing arts, for the humanities, for languages, because they also play a crucial role in education. And you may be very good at welding. You may be very good at fixing a pipe, but without the critical thinking, the cultural awareness, the effective communication skills that provide you being exposed and being able to learn humanities, as in music, art, world languages, PE, mindfulness, all these things that you can have really good and skilled workers, but where are all of the other skills that many companies are looking for in their workers too? So yeah, just to put the word out there, I really like what you said, Dr. Fletcher. Let's not forget about that other stuff too.
Never will we forget about that, Alfonso, because, the cultural backgrounds of each student just adds to the enrichment of the opportunities that kids will have. I think that who we are, and we need to embrace who we are, and how does that enrich the environment that we're in. So again, never will we run away from the arts and others too, because I think that adds so much value. As a matter of fact, our defenses of learning are great examples of that.
That's a wonderful segue into our next item, our next review item, the state of career and technical education. We have to present this report, Dr. Beth Hargis, Policy Advisor, Dr. Lauren Graves, and Division Directors Beth Engel and Tom Thompson will be making this presentation. We are well into the subject, I would say. So please, Beth.
Thank you so much to all of the board members and to Dr. Fletcher for your obvious support of career and technical education. We are so very blessed to work in this area. So for the sake of time, I'm going to throw it directly to Dr. Graves to kick us off. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. We are happy to provide an overview of the state of career and technical education in Kentucky and want to share that Governor Beshear will be signing the CTE Month proclamation during the Team Kentucky meeting on February 12th at 12 p.m. And we'd like to invite any board members who are available to join us, and we'll provide more information following this meeting. All right, to jump into it, the relevance of Kentucky's CTE has grown, especially since the significant investment in 2022, which provided $70 million for local CTE programming. During the December KBE meeting, the return on investment was discussed, and we hope that the data we share will lend itself to positive ROI information. We'll provide more details regarding current funding later in the presentation, but want to remind you that with HB 6 in 2024, state-operated area technology centers were left out of the supplemental funding calculations. During this current legislative session, we are seeking additional funding of $14,789,352 in both the fiscal year 27 and 28 to include the ATCs under the supplemental funding and calculations. The budget bill for this session, HB 500, was released on January 27th and currently includes the same notwithstanding language as did HB 6 from the 2024 session. We are asking for your support to get the ATCs included in the funding and calculation and for the additional funding to hold local districts harmless. This will help ensure that all of Kentucky's students have access to the same resources and high-quality CTE, regardless of where they receive instruction. Additionally, we have additional budget requests for KRS 156 employee salaries, KRS 156 step and rank increases, CTSOs, and JROTC consultants. We respectfully ask for your support in securing funding for these requests as well. Career and technical education in Kentucky has evolved well beyond traditional trade preparation and includes pre-law, teaching and learning, graphic design, accounting, cybersecurity, among many others. Our pathways are intentionally designed to integrate rigorous academic standards with relevant technical skills, supporting both college and career readiness. Kentucky currently offers 13 program areas with more than 120 secondary pathways for students in grades 9 through 12. We are committed to keeping CTE responsive to workforce needs by continuously reviewing and updating pathway offerings to reflect emerging technologies and evolving skill requirements. New pathways are developed through a collaborative process led by business and industry partners, ensuring strong alignment with current and future labor market demands. Next slide, please. Career and technical education provides a holistic approach to education by integrating academic, technical, and employability skills within a 4-course sequence to provide students with a competitive advantage, including early post-secondary opportunities. These opportunities include earning dual credit, industry-recognized certifications, and participation in work-based learning opportunities, preparing students for immediate careers and post-secondary degrees. We are equipping students with the skills needed to address workforce gaps and contribute meaningfully to Kentucky's economy and communities. Next slide, please. I will turn it over to Beth Engel if she is available.
I'm here. Thank you, Dr. Grace.
All right, thank you.
As you can see, this slide provides a snapshot of the 2025 school year, and it shows 145,369 individual students in grades 9 through 12 who participated in CTE during the 2025 school year. 14,253 graduates earning more than one post-secondary credential, and these include the articulated end-of-program assessments, industry certifications, CTE dual credit, work-based learning, co-ops, internships, apprenticeships, and career-ready alternate assessment. 83.8% of students participating in CTE earned a concentrator status, meaning they completed at least 2 credits in a KBE approved 4-course sequence pathway, and 99.37% of CTE concentrators have graduated. 76,134 students participated in a career and technical student organization, often referred to as a CTSO, which offers co-curricular resources and opportunities for students in CTE pathways. Next slide, please. Since the 2022-2023 school year, the number of students in grades 9 through 12 participating in CTE and the number of graduates earning more than one post-secondary credential, which is significant for student outcomes, has risen. We see a slight 0.3% decrease in CTSO membership, and we are working to increase this for the current year. Next slide, please. Now, continuing the trends, we have increased in our concentrator graduation rate from the 23-24 school year and have remained constant for the past 3 years. The number of graduating seniors attaining concentrator status increased almost 9% between the 23 and 25 school years. Keep in mind that the number of concentrators is a relevant data point. As you recall, a concentrating student indicates that a student has successfully completed at least 2 credits of a 4-credit approved pathway. From a skills standpoint, the student has progressed halfway through that pathway and is moving toward their completion status. Next slide, please. As you can see, our overall CTE career readiness has continued to increase and was 64% for the 24-25 school year. The orange columns show the total participation, while the blue columns indicate the numerator or the number of students attaining career readiness. The purpose of this slide is to show you that we are not only serving more students, but a greater percentage of students are graduating career ready. Next slide, please. Now, this slide shows our career readiness indicator trends for the 12th grade graduating cohort by indicator, which shows we have increased in all areas, including CTE dual credit, industry certifications, and work-based learning. Next slide, please. Often we hear that CTE students are going straight into the workforce, but our in-state college going rate for CTE graduates who have completed a pathway is higher than the state average for all graduates. Next slide, please. Now, of course, one of the department goals is to reduce chronic absenteeism, and we believe that career and technical education helps in that effort. This chart shows that students taking CTE courses in our ATCs have significantly lower chronic absenteeism rates than the statewide rate. And like the state, that rate is also decreasing. Now, we are only able to show data for the ATCs, but we will continue to monitor and encourage attendance for all career and technical education students. And I believe I will be turning over to Mr. Tom Thompson.
Good morning. Happy CTE month. Our CTSOs are co-curricular, career-based organizations that offer resources and opportunities for students in CTE pathways to develop general knowledge, leadership, and technical skills by participating in activities, events, and competitions. CTSOs provide students the opportunity to acquire, sharpen, and demonstrate durable skills that are an integral part of job attainment and retention. Next slide, please. We want to share with you the dates and locations of our CTSO state conferences where students will demonstrate their skill attainment. We invite you to serve as a judge at one or more of our competitions by using the links provided. We are also happy to provide those via email. I'll pass it back to Dr. Hargis.
Thank you, Tom. And I hope that you all appreciate the trends that we've been able to show because, in years gone by, we've just had that single year. And so, we're moving toward the trends and really tracking those. So this slide is shifting gears a little bit, but it brings us back to the $70 million that the General Assembly dedicated to career and technical education back in 2022. So I really want to point out how this is actually laid out. So 60% of that allocation of that 70 million is based on the weighted full-time equivalent enrollments. And this is illustrated on the left-hand side of the slide. And 40% is based on high-quality CTE incentives, which is again shown on the right-hand side. And as you can see on the left-hand side, if you go down to that third box, it shows the calculation and amount for the statewide value of each local district's weighted full-time equivalency, which is $1,320.29. So likewise, the fourth box down on the right-hand side of this chart shows the calculation and amount for the per incentive value of each local district's high quality incentives that are attained by students. And then that is the $455.93. Now, it's also important to note that students can earn up to 4 incentives. And please also remember, as Dr. Graves pointed out, that this chart only applies to the local CTE programming. And so for the current fiscal year, 160 local districts received funding. And we can't say enough thanks to the General Assembly for making this possible. Now, the area technology centers receive funding based solely on their WFTEs, as they were excluded from that supplemental funding model, and with that notwithstanding language in House Bill 6 from 2024, and then again this year in the House Bill 500. And so the weighted FTE value of an ATC student is $549.66. And so again, that's why we're asking for you to help us advocate for the inclusion of the ATCs into that formula so that they would have an opportunity to earn incentives for their funding as well. And then again, for that additional budget request so that we can hold those districts harmless. Right now, as you can see, or as you can hear, there is a huge discrepancy in the amounts that they're receiving. All right, next slide, please. So I hope you've had the opportunity to review the PowerPoint videos that are located in the KBE portal. And so for time's sake, we're not going to play the first two, but I so want to encourage you to watch those if you haven't. One of them is Walter Cronkite, and it's based in the 60s, talking about the technology that's getting ready to hit and what that might look like. And, we've lived it, we're here. And it's really enjoyable to watch that. And then the next one is a young man whose father took him in, and they're talking about computers and what that might look like when this young man is an adult. And so it's really fun. It's exciting to watch. So please, if you've not had an opportunity to see those, I encourage you to jump back in and do that. But the one that we do want to show you is this one. And yes, here we go, I think. So before Glyptosan actually hits play, just so that we are working with business and industry to embed artificial intelligence and its ethical use into our pathways. And so while we can't anticipate all of the technological advancements that are going to hit, AI is here, just like the internet, and we can prepare our students to use AI to enhance the knowledge and skills attained through participation in CTE and academics. So Glyptosan, let's keep our fingers crossed, and if you wouldn't mind to hit play.
By 2050, the world of work will look very different, and so will Kentucky's career and technical education. Artificial intelligence, increased automation, and rapid innovation are already reshaping how we learn, work, and live. In response, CTE will continue to emphasize ethics, creativity, and critical thinking, while advancing technical skills and empowering students to lead alongside AI and emerging technologies rather than competing with them. We won't fear the future, we'll shape it. We envision tomorrow's classroom experiences becoming deeply personalized. Artificial intelligence will help teachers accentuate tailored learning to each student and expand their workplace readiness and opportunities for credentials. Micro-credentials may become the norm, offering just-in-time credentialing for specific skills or competencies. CTE pathway development will expand into fields that are only beginning to take shape today, such as advanced manufacturing incorporating the use of AI-driven robotics, biotechnology and genetic innovation, cybersecurity and digital defense, sustainable energy systems, and AI-driven healthcare. Incorporating AI advancements, each CTE pathway will continue to prepare students to tackle the challenges and changes of tomorrow and to create the solutions to continue powering Kentucky's economy. As CTE's relevance grows, Kentucky will focus on intentional, vibrant, and engaging career exploration starting in elementary and middle school, with middle school experiences providing students a clear understanding of future pathway options and guiding informed decisions that lead to dedicated CTE pathways in high school. In the future, the demand for a highly skilled workforce will remain strong, and it is through deeper career exploration and focused preparation that students will be equipped to succeed in their chosen fields. The future of CTE in Kentucky is about preparing students for life, for innovation, adaptability, and leadership in a world driven by possibility. Kentucky CTE, empowering learners today to shape the world of tomorrow.
Thank you. And we are so excited about that video. It's actually all AI generated. Mr. Tom Thompson in our office did this. And there's a couple of little spots in there that really just kind of drive home such an important point for us, because artificial intelligence, it's only as good as it's that garbage in, garbage out scenario. And so there's a couple of spots in there. One of them is where the lady is holding the tablet and she moves her hand, but her thumb is still stuck on the tablet. So, AI is only, it's there for a tool for us to use and for us to enhance what we're able to do. And so I encourage you, as if you're able to go back and replay these videos, to consider yourself what education is going to look like in 25 years. And the rate of technology and the rate of change, it's going exponentially. So we need to, we've got to think about this. We can't let the future sneak up on us. And so we are working diligently with our business and industries to make sure that we are preparing students for those jobs that haven't even been created yet. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Tom to talk about some of that emerging technology.
Thank you, Dr. Hargis. So we just talked about emerging technology and specifically in artificial intelligence. Presently, we have a local AI pathway at Warren County that will help us make informed decisions about AI statewide in CTE. As we discussed, we are looking at emerging technologies in academic and employability standards, as well as currently working to embed AI into relevant content standards where they naturally fall. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Hargis.
Thank you. And now to wrap it up, next slide, please. Just wanted to give you an update on where we stand with our middle school career exploration. We may have mentioned this before, that we were the recipients of a grant along with 4 other states, and it's about middle school exploration. And we know that research shows that if you're going to talk to students about what they want to be, you don't wait until they get to high school. That, and I was one of those people that changed my major 3 times in college. So I was one of those people, but it was just back in the day, but we did not have a really good focused program on exploration, either at the high school or the middle school for that matter. But middle school is really where we need to start talking, or elementary is where we need to start talking to them about it. But in the middle school is where we really want to be able to set that hook. And so that the students are more able to make an informed decision when they're entering high school and they know what classes they need to take. So then it just provides that seamless transition to post-secondary, whether it's through a college, university, or whether it's directly into the workforce. And so as this work progresses, we will be providing updates, and we look forward to helping middle school students, figure this out. We will never hold a student in a pathway that they're not interested in. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes that can be the biggest blessing, because you don't want a student to go all the way through college only to graduate and say, I hate what I'm doing for a living. And so we want them to be able to understand what it's going to take to get there, and what it's going to take for, right now for them to understand how to do it. And so we know that career exploration is a shared responsibility. It can't be one person doing it. We have to have everyone involved. It begins with well-prepared staff, including teachers, counselors, and student voice has to be a very important piece of this, because in our minds, we may know exactly how to do it, but again, the exploration is not for us, it's for the kids, and we need to make sure that we are meeting their needs. And so with that, next slide, please. With that, I will close it out and say that we have, I think, about 4 minutes remaining to answer any questions you may have.
Before
I have a
we
real
get
quick
to,
question. Go ahead, Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Before we get into questions, I do want to acknowledge that in observing CTE month, we had looked forward to an in-person CTE showcase had we been able to meet in public, and I do in person. I do want to extend a sincere thank you to the several school districts, students, and staff who put great effort into planning to participate in this showcase, and hope that perhaps we can revisit and reschedule our celebration, our in-person celebration. Lou, you had your hand up, and I will call on Dr. Young. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I love the new assets, I think is how the comms people refer to them, Dr. Hargis, and many thanks to you and the team for really putting us out there into 2050 in the conversation. I also love the emphasis in the language of the video around personalization. We all know that CTE, world languages, the arts, extracurricular activities, athletics, those are the areas that have long led the way in terms of high interest for students, personalization, and the future careers of young people inside our system. So just one note of encouragement that I would offer, the more you can use the language of Kentucky United We Learn in the CTE marketing and branding of vibrant learning experiences. I love what the arts folks have done by talking about VLEs in their work, because what you showed, of course, is quintessentially vibrant learning experiences for kids. So thinking about what a nice match that is to this board's vision and work around Kentucky United We Learn, I think is really helpful. And I know local districts, as they move further into local accountability, they use CTE models to say, here's what a vibrant learning experience looks like at middle and at high. So we'll just put in that plug, and thank you so much. I love the presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. And let me also, and you've hit it exactly, because we know that CTE does not stand alone. CTE and academics go hand in hand. And so we understand that, and thank you so much.
There was another comment, a question.
I think it was Mr. McKinney.
I have one too.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I heard the phrase industry recognized certificate used a couple of times in this presentation. My question is this: Does that mean these are recognized nationally? Is it what does that mean exactly to you?
Okay, and I can try to talk it through, Tom, but if you listen, feel free to jump in. We have a system in place with the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board, so KWIB. And so what they do is when we have a business or industry that comes forth and says, we will hire, or this credential is industry certification is relevant to us getting employees, then there is a process, and it's vetted at the state level with business and industry. Then it goes back to KWIB and they approve that. So it's a statewide approval process. So all of the industry certifications that are listed on our approved list are for the state of Kentucky. Now, that's not to say that they are not recognized nationwide, but we do vet them at the state level.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Julie?
I think Randy was before me. Randy, did you still have a question?
Oh, that's okay. You can go ahead, Julie, and I'll wait until you're finished.
Okay. So one question I had in the transportation area, has there been any thoughts of adding like Air Corps aircraft mechanics, because that is a huge demand up here in northern Kentucky. Kids are having to go over to Ohio to get that kind of training.
Tom,
And then go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say I'll let Mr. Thompson address this, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, I mean, we do
and then
have oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, just on that particular one, we do have aviation, but we don't have very many schools that do the maintenance. You're talking about airframe and power plant maintenance type certifications.
For aeronautics.
Right. We do have some that do the aviation, teach them how to fly planes and that type of thing, but we don't have a whole lot of them that do the avionics or the power plant and airframe type mechanics yet.
Yeah, so what has happened here in Northern Kentucky is there's been private schools opening and that they're very cost prohibitive for students, or they go over to Ohio to Cincinnati State. So that's a big demand field up here. The other question I had was, I'm not familiar as far as how are the facilities funded at the ATCs? Because I know I've had conversations in the past with ours here that said they could take more students, but they don't have the space, physical space.
Okay, so from the for the ATCs, the local districts own those buildings. So I think in this last round of the and you'll have to forgive me, the acronym has left me, but the money that was put out there, the several million that was put out there for the upgrade of those facilities, districts had the opportunity to apply for that grant in order to get money to renovate or expand. But we simply utilize their building. So it's a local district issue.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Poe.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And Dr. Hargis and your team, thank you for the report. Excellent things there. The two ones that I really want to comment that I really loved is the slide you've added, the college going rate and how it's increasing. And I think that's showing that engagement is so important for our students. And not only the engagement there, but and the slide showing that, back in the day when I was teaching, the whole issue was CTE was going to distract you from post-secondary attainment. And no, what you're showing is that you're engaged. And once you're engaged, you're saying, look, I'm going to be employed in this area, but I'm not going to just stay in the employment level. I want to be able to advance. So they're getting their post-secondary degrees. And I think that work ties into the work that we heard from Dr. Thompson earlier today about that college debt is going down because a lot of these students, and a lot of that has to do with dual enrollment and the increases there. So I want to commend you on that and commend, that particular portion. And the reason why I'm saying that is I was very disappointed in the budget that came out that is holding us frozen. Prior to 2022, as you well know, that's what happened for the last 10 to 15 years. And that was the state of what happened to CTE during that time. It was frozen at a $30 million budget. And we increased that and we upped our facilities. We really need to be pushing this particular initiative, all of us on the Kentucky Board of Education, to Representative Petrie and Banta, who is, looking at those particular budgets now and said, we want groups to come back in. So I'm encouraging you to be there. I'm encouraging you to invite me to be there again. I was there in 2022 when we were pushing that initiative, or whatever we need to do, because what we need to do is make sure Representative Petrie and Senator McDaniels are seeing these results. It plays into our workforce development. And there's nothing greater than those two slides showing that CTE is helping the college going post-secondary rate, and it's also showing how it decreases chronic absenteeism in relationship to the local accountability. If they would give us more funding up the skills to what you saw in the slide that we have that you showed that the uh, uh, snapshot video there is excellent, but those things aren't cheap for school districts. And as you just said, the buildings are the local decision, but what goes inside those are a state's decision, especially in the state schools part. So we've really got to have money to increase. And we were looking in 2022 to get an inflationary amount put into that budget. That did not happen. And now we're 4 years later with that same amount of money, basically. And we don't need to be here 10 years later. So whatever we can do to help you, let us know, because we got to get this message out. And this is the month to do it, I know. And what we need to do is take our students that are in these things, showing the vibrant learning, and let's have a meeting with Petrie, and let's have a meeting with Senator McDaniels again. Both of them were there. I applaud both of them, because without either of those two, we wouldn't have got what we got at that time. But we need to let them know how important it is to keep funding us and not being stagnant. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir. And we appreciate that, Dr. Poe. Just a couple of things. Let me clarify. On those the Area Technology Center programming. So that's really not just a state decision. That would be a community decision, because we do have steering committees for those schools, and they are the ones that actually make the decision, working with the principal and the community, KCTCS, all of the stakeholders, to say, these are the programs that we need to offer. But you are correct. They are very expensive. But again, we feel like the money is there for the locals. What we're advocating for is just for that ABR to be approved. And if that's approved, and that notwithstanding language removed from the budget bill, then we're going to be on a level playing field. And we believe we'll have enough money to hold us for a little while anyway. And that would allow the ATCs to be brought under that formula, so that they're receiving the incentives as well. They're getting the FTE values, and everybody's at the same level, so that it doesn't matter where you are a welding student, you're going to be generating the same amount of funds, because that's what we're advocating for. So the two things that we need removal of the notwithstanding language out of the budget bill, and we need approval of that it's a 29 million and something ABR. And again, that would hold the local districts harmless to bring those over. Now, we have had the opportunity to be before Chair Banta's subcommittee 3 times now. And so, we've been able to, kind of throw it in as far as, the ABR and what we need all of those times. So thank you so much for your comments and support.
So,
Okay,
colleagues, I'm going to close this topic by saying let's revisit our advocacy strategies regarding CTE, see if we can amp them up, and let's work together to make the resources available to enhance our efforts. I'm going to call on Harper to have the last question.
Oh, I see her now. So I guess that was on my end, yeah.
I'm sorry, was there somebody else talking? Okay,
text her what you did, Zach.
Okay.
Harper, please proceed.
All right. I noticed that you talked a little bit about the AI pathway that you had at, I think, one of the ATCs. And I think that that's great, because AI is the future, and I think that a lot of students will have to utilize AI familiarity and AI skills in their future jobs. However, I almost want to say that the responsibility part of what might be taught on one of those pathways should be applied to all students. And I think that all students should learn at least how to use AI ethically, because all students do have access to AI. So I think even students that aren't choosing to take an AI pathway, I think it would be incredibly beneficial if we, just kind of implemented some type of basic, to prevent cheating, pretty much.
Thank you, Harper, and you're exactly right. And so that's why what we are trying to do is embed those AI activities within all of our pathways. And I think at some point you're going to see that within the traditional academic pathways as well. You're going to see it in the classrooms, embedded. So it's here, and we're learning how to use it. And so thank you for that comment, and we totally agree.
So we've got a full agenda here. In the interest of time, I'm going to close this topic and move to our next item, the Kentucky High School Athletic Association Annual Update. We welcome KHSAA at Commissioner Julian Tackett to join us.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. He's joined by General Counsel Chad Collins and KDE Deputy Commissioner and General Counsel Todd Allen for several items of importance on this annual update item.
Good morning. Thank you all. As the board knows, the board designates the Kentucky High School Athletics Association to be the agent that manages middle and high school interscholastic athletics throughout the Commonwealth. As part of that designation, the board has a regulation that requires KHSAA to make several reports on an annual basis, and the next 3 items on your agenda are those required reports. So we'll start off with a report from KHSAA regarding their annual operations and management. Then we will go on to the Title IX report, where KHSAA goes out and reviews its member schools on a rotating basis. And then finally, some recommended changes to the regulation based on KHSAA's annual meeting of schools. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Tackett.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Let me say publicly thank you to you and Mr. Couch and Dr. Park and Dr. Foster. We lean on just about everyone on your staff, Dr. Fletcher, to make sure that we're trying to consistently messaging. But Mr. Allen's been extremely helpful the last year, getting some things reworked and to make sure you all are efficiently informed and we can make this meeting as efficient as possible. Chair Robinson, I will tell you, we will not go over every word, but if anyone thinks we are rushing through something, we would urge you to please ask questions when we get to that point. So the first part is just an operational review of 24-25. And there's not a lot of substantive changes in there. Part of this we do is summarize for you the changes that have been approved by our schools. And this is a membership-driven organization. This is, sometimes for those that haven't been through this, the KHSAA is 3 different entities. It's a building, it's its staff, and then it's its member schools. Well, for us, it's the member schools. And they get together in the fall in a meeting that was an offshoot of past State Board of Education action, where every school has a vote, whether they have 5 students or 2,500. They all have a vote in operations. And so you have listed the 2 things that were, first part of this report is the 2 things that were on that agenda. I don't mind saying that the first proposal is probably the first of several things you will see over the next several years as we try to grapple with athletics' role in an open education choice era and balance competitive advantage with that. I've made the statement, a lot of people have talked about their work with the legislature. We have a tremendous relationship with them, and no, we don't always agree with their stances, and they don't always agree with ours, but we do communicate with them quite a bit. And we know the ability of students to transfer is a big issue. We are a state that for decades has had that when you enter the 9th grade, it doesn't matter what you've done before the 9th grade, as far as your ability to play. And that's been it's been good and bad. Maybe we'd do it differently if we started over tomorrow. Where we deal with it and where we get the most publicity, probably that you as board members would hear, is when students transfer. And you need to understand a couple of things that I won't go in a lot of detail, but a part of this reason why the transfer vote was critical, we are held to holding our student appeals under KRS Chapter 13B, which means, like a lot of agencies, we have a lot of red tape to go through. Our due process procedure, which we'll mention very briefly later in the regulation, contains some adaptations to 13B to try to recognize that a typical sports season is 10 to 12 weeks, and you can't take as long as other administrative agencies would take in using 13B, or a kid would never have an opportunity to be eligible. So we have an initial ruling done by a ruling officer in the building, and then that can be appealed, and that appeal is appealed on to me. And then after all of that, they can still take it to court. We're finding, like our friends in the NCAA, that the court route is happening more often in the college level than it is here. We've been very pleased. We've been able to use, as that second level, an independent hearing officer. We've kept to retired circuit judges that are able to look at matters and try to figure out what would happen. We feel like it puts us in a good position because these people have worn the robes, been in the court. They're going to know likely what most of those circuit judges would be thinking if at the end of the process they came. So we have a number of students, large portion of our students that become eligible through all the process, and some that don't. And a lot of it is dependent upon what the schools do. One of the things you probably heard, we're working on a transition to an electronic process, which will be in place for 26-27. Until the early part of 2024-25, we were not permitted to use an automated online transfer process. And through these regulatory amendments, that opportunity's been opened up to us. But one of the problems that has slowed our work on that is that we touch 7 states. So we also have to be able to manage things that go back and forth between different states and different data systems. And that has been a heavy lift for our technology partners. The first change that's in this report is a fundamental change that in all reality might not impact too many students. Our board discussed for more than a year and a half different alternatives to where if a student had only participated in a minimal amount of participation and then left, the transfer rule could be waived. What we found through study over years, and frankly what we knew because of stories that have been told to us, is this tries to eliminate the coach who arbitrarily sticks a kid in the first game to lock him in from moving. And we all would like to think that people would make all their decisions in the interest of students, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes a gifted athlete was thrown in a game early on, and that way they could not have an opportunity to move. So there's now a percentage developed within the attached rule that if you've only played that much or less, that's one of the reasons the period of ineligibility can be waived. You will hear a lot about transfers in the news. I would urge you, if you get interested in it, we can certainly tell you what other states are doing more accurately than a lot of media accounts do. Frankly, there's a lot of nuances to the other states' rules. Our period of ineligibility in our transfer rule is 1 year from the date you last played. There are states who trumpet that they have a really, really tough eligibility rule now for transfers, and their ineligibility period is 30 days. We have others that are in between those. What we are really, really having challenges on now is the volume of transfers. We know that education choice is an initiative of everyone in the legislature, or the majority of the legislature. We know they want accountability so that you're able to make the best choice. It's coming at a time when the level above us is absolute anarchy. When you talk about college play, and kids can get mad after one game and go ahead and leave, or leave at the end of the season without suffering repercussions. And many parents feel that goes along with us. So one of the things we want to do with this report is not tell you just A, B, and C what happened, but tell you a little bit about what's going on that you may hear other issues about. We do have people who will trumpet the idea of a one-time transfer. States are deciding that on their own. We have states that are totally independent and don't have a reporting relationship. They are right now really struggling because their schools are trying to hold a hard line on transfers. And there's at least 2 of them who've been told through legislative action that if you don't loosen up, we're going to take away your authority to govern athletics. This is a big issue, unfortunately. And I always think of Dr. Poe when I look around the state boardroom, but Dr. Poe knows that as a lead educator, and certainly one of our more visible proponents of a lot of the things around the academic side, if an eligibility issue got out of hand on sports, it distracted from everything. It all of a sudden the attention of the community changed. So we try to keep these things to where they lay low. But we know that right now, and I really applaud something Dr. Fletcher said earlier, because he talked about the community emphasis on comparability. Well, we would say that where you all and our Department of Ed partners and their Board of Education partners are grappling with colors, ours are grappling with trophies. There's what they want is a new person to win, and it can't be the same one, and you're the reason we're not getting it. So it is a different environment. Everyone is talking with capital letters and exclamation points, and social media has given everybody a platform. So we are constantly trying to keep those balances down. At the same time, and I made this mention to the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, we have two things that are disturbing, but we're going to get more information on them. Number one is we do not have consensus among our school leaders, and I'm talking about our superintendents. We don't have consensus on what transfers should look like. To be quite candid, if a new student is coming into their school, the overwhelming opinion is we don't need a restriction. If the student is leaving their school, the overwhelming opinion is we need a restriction. And that is really causing issues for a little nonprofit that tries to do the best it can for you all. And as I've told legislators in the hallways of the annex multiple times over the last few years, you've got us in a position where you're saying you want choice of where to go to school, unless they played sports and you really kind of like this restrictive transfer rule. So we're trying to navigate more than just outside right now. We're trying to navigate some slippery ice between those two issues. So, and the second piece that I think is important that we have to recognize is there's other reasons why the transfer option may be occurring more. I think the impact of what's going on at the college level is taking away opportunities from high school seniors at such a great rate that there are a number of families and coaches, et cetera, that feel like they put a lot into the development of these kids, and now they've got no opportunity. So what can I do to get myself back at the head of the line? Well, maybe I just need.
Commissioner Tackett, I think you all ended up muted.
Yes.
Can you unmute yourself?
Try it again. I've tried again. I hope you noticed. You know what happens is I talk with my hands. I probably hit the mute button. But I think that we also see that the opportunities for parents are reducing, and that's putting a lot of pressure on families. And I think that something that was said earlier about legislative listening, they're listening. Let me tell you that every time there's an athletics issue, we get calls. And I'm thankful we've got that relationship with the legislature. They just, and I've had one of them tell me that sometimes they just would like the calls to go away. That whatever it takes to make the calls go away. But we're going to try to keep getting input from our schools. The second issue, and I'll speed this up because most of my talk was about transfers. The second issue that you see that in the report was a desire to try to give some balance to eligibility of non-domestic students, foreign students, where our federal government does not easily have balance. And the biggest issue right now we're facing is students on an F1 visa. And those students by federal law are restricted to 1 year in a public school and are not restricted in terms of how long they stay at a private school. And that is causing more and more divisions. You're seeing smaller non-public schools have multiple F1 students on their rosters. We believe in the value of student participation. We certainly believe in the value of interaction between different people of different cultures, but it's creating a competitive balance situation. And one of the things our schools wanted was a little balance, and that's where the proposal, the second proposal came through. So we feel like that the rest of the document on the report talks about some of the changes in policies. We're having to evolve a little bit. We went through a shortage of officials for a while, and now that has restored itself, but we've had to be a little more lenient on that. The other thing I want to be sure board members who maybe haven't heard one of these reports understand, we are charged with managing middle and high school athletics, but the middle school is a very small carve-out. We have an advisory committee, our staff works with people, and we try to look at what needs to go into this regulation, but there's not near the governance that we do at the high school level because we don't manage the championships, we don't manage the eligibility. A lot of that is local control. So they're not in the same pot. And I just hope you see that. With that, I think Mr. Collins is our general counsel. Anything that you have that we've omitted, we need to mention in this report.
No, I think that Commissioner Tackett's covered it well. I think what I hope the board understands, what I hope the board hears is that under Commissioner Tackett's leadership, we have really, for many years, been reviewing these bylaws and trying to modernize them. The commissioner's fond of making references back to the way things were in 1985, and we can all appreciate that. But I think the point that we have to take away is that, you know, this Board of Education, these schools, they are constantly scrutinizing these rules, trying to make sure that they match up with the times. Commissioner Tackett mentioned the open borders, things that started with House Bill 563 that really kind of opened up the opportunity for kids to change schools for academic issues. And certainly we need to make sure that we're modernizing the rule to account for these things in conjunction with what the legislature has mentioned. And I think that is something that we continue to do and we take serious. I also want to thank Dr. Fletcher and Mr. Allen, as they have been instrumental in making sure that the communication between our two organizations continues at a high rate. We love the partnership that we have with this organization, and we look forward to having a wonderful relationship in the future.
The last thing I'll say, Dr. Robinson, is on the horizon with the legislature, just to let you know, as is typical of the 60-day session, at least the first 30 is dominated by budget. We do not receive a general fund appropriation. There are some people that aren't aware of that. So we like to mention that every single time. So I want you to know that there's discussion not only in the hallways, but among our membership about public and private schools. That will always come up. There is a state that, most states that have tried to do any kind of separation from their original structure have found themselves on the losing end of a federal court case. There is a state right now where that's a current issue in Alabama. We are watching that. Alabama, their board has made a decision to try and separate their championships. Just to give you a little idea, and I think Dr. Cohen and Dr. Young were around when this was discussed once before. The highlight, the big part of the discussion was around football playoffs. We have 16 non-public schools that play football. That's hard. That's going to be hard to make a classification out of. And Little Bardstown, Bethlehem, or Little Sayre having to play St. X or Trinity is likely not very feasible. So we know that there's some things other states go through that we probably can't do, but they also made this move at the start of their legislative session. So I think we're going to be able to watch what goes on over the next few months and determine if some of the people that are looking for a different distribution of trophies, if there are alternatives out there. But we don't want you to think our heads in the sand. We watch what happens. We know what's happening around some of the issues. So we know that's discussed a little bit. The legislative feeling now, at least from leadership that they've expressed to us, is they want the KHSAA making those decisions. They really would rather it not be a legislative initiative because they know in athletics, probably more than any other thing they do, there are winners and losers. And they like things where everybody wins. And I applaud them for that. Secondly, there is a renewed push for homeschool students to participate for our schools. That has been rebuked many times by our legislature. Our membership has not been in favor of that. The current bill that's out there would allow homeschool participation without regard for them being connected to any school. There was an amendment brought up last year that would have required them to at least do some testing and take a certain amount of hours at a school they wanted to play for. We don't know where this will go. Our board has declined to ask our schools for a vote on this. They frankly feel like they know what our schools will vote. Our schools will vote no. And so they feel like that this needs to be, if it's changed, probably a legislative decision. But we're monitoring it. We know that likely anything related to this kind of thing, more likely it's going to happen in a short session year or after the budget's resolved. And with that, Dr. Robinson, that's the summary of this report. And if there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer.
Thank you so much. This report is going to be our launching path to our action and discussion agenda. Before I go to that, are there any questions from the board members for this report? On this report, it's real clear. You don't have to go any further than KHSAA if you want to see complexity in dealing with the important activity of student athletics. We've created quite an interesting complexity of issues. So questions, comments?
I'll just comment. I think, Mr. Tackett does an excellent job. I've been around since before the 1985, and so forth, as we talked about there. Great job. I don't know, to be honest, I don't know how you do it and withstand the pressures of all these things. So do appreciate the work you do, Mr. Tackett. Being in the sports arena for 20 years or so coaching, excellent job. Just thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Poet. I've got a really good bunch of teammates around, so I appreciate their work too.
So I will ask Todd Allen to introduce our next issue on the pardon me, on our action discussion agenda. We have the proposed amendment to 702 KAR 7065, designation of agent to manage middle and high school interscholastic athletics. This item was also reviewed by the local superintendent's advisory council, and a letter from Chair Kurt Biggerstaff regarding the council's review was provided to members in the portal in advance of today's meeting. Todd, is there anything further you can advise us?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm going to turn it over to the KHSAA team there. And I think there's also an item for us to discuss the Title IX report. So if you all want to take both of those, I think we can take them together.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. I'll start, and I've got Associate Commissioner Darren Bilberry in here with us. Darren is our day-to-day person regarding Title IX. And this is an annual, the report, not the regulation piece, but the report on Title IX is an annual thing that we do. I'll bring 2 points out of this report and in summary, and you will see attached to the back is a summary of the observations made. We have 4 retired educators that go out, travel the state. They do approximately 40 visits every year. This past year, they did 43, and they're scheduled to do 43 again next year. And they physically go and they look at storage closets, gyms, walls, and white banners are up there. They look at opportunities for uniforms. They really do a physical visit. It's designed to be every 5 to 6 years. This particular cycle has gone 2 years longer because we had more than a year that we could not go into school buildings due to the pandemic shutdown. So we waited, and this current year will finish up this cycle. The 2 observations I would make: we had a new data system last year in 24-25, and I'll make a pledge to the board. We have site visit reports, which you see this summer. We also have that you see that was submitted this summer, and then you see we have annual reports that are submitted by every school. So the 43 are field visited, all 290 have an annual report. We went to a new data system, and honestly, they were into May getting software finalized for reports. Our staff was not nearly aggressive, and I've already given them this lecture, but our staff was not nearly as aggressive making sure they submitted those reports because of the timing. So for so many cases, it was after the last day of school. when the person doing the report was already done for the year. The ADs don't work 12 months. So a lot of times we did have a handful that were missing. I can assure you that won't happen again. The other thing that I'll tell you is on page 2 of the report is mention of 3 specific situations where I call your attention to. You may recall we had a school in Southeast Kentucky that I shared with you and the board shared with me concern about their site visit last year. We had a couple of those that we just want you to know are continuing to be worked on. Bellevue High School is a school in Northern Kentucky that had a lot of work going on around the building, and they may not have, they had some additional things they were supposed to submit. And they did not complete all of that. So we know that as we go forward, we'll be double checking. It could be since this report was prepared and today they may have submitted that. I apologize, I can't tell you, but I know we have pledged to stay with them. The other thing, Louisville Seneca High School had some change in leadership, and they were supposed to attend the Title IX seminar we conducted last year. They did not. And our staff, we did two meetings, and they were both by Zoom, so there was no travel involved. Our staff will be much more diligent in making sure those people that are required to attend those follow-ups attend in the future. The last situation, I know we all wish Dr. Bissell the best of luck opening his new facility in Christian County, the mega project down there, but we did not get them in this cycle. We would have gotten them this past year, but felt like with them building brand new schools and probably not necessarily high prioritizing everything around the 2 old schools, we'd be better off waiting till this coming year, the 26-27 year, when we can really look at what they have on campus. So that's why those notes are there. Mr. Bilberry, is there anything you can think of from a Title IX perspective?
Only that in addition to what the commissioners mentioned about our retired educators and service professional auditors, we certainly want to extend our thanks to the member schools. The majority of that auditing is done internally with their gender equity review committee. So, we're only able to get out to, as the commissioner mentioned, about 43 schools per year, but it's an ongoing audit within those schools. And we've just had great partnership with our member schools in regard to gender equity and the things they do within their building and their local community. So we do appreciate that.
The last thing I will mention about Title IX is you recall as part of the APA audit last summer, one of the things that we were asked to do is be able to log complaints that we have had that might regard Title IX. The closest thing we've had did not occur till December of 25, but we will be able to provide in next year's report on Title IX. We'll be able to give you that documented listing as we were asked to do.
Thank you very much.
And now
And then lastly,
onto the regulation amendments.
Yes, please.
Yeah, please. And I think the majority, we've actually covered the majority of the changes. The other thing, and I'll ask Mr. Collins if there's anything we need to highlight, but attached to this is the bulk of our regulation is through the things that are incorporated by reference, documents like our bylaws and due process and constitution. So we give you item by item, line by line, everything that changes so that you're aware. The one thing that is not part of the regulation, and I always like to do this for newer board members, is the way we set up championships. Thankfully, the legislature realized a long time ago that the competition rules need to be more flexible. The board has a lot of day-to-day authority over that, and they need that because, frankly, we have schools coming in and out of sports every day. They will add on Monday and delete next Friday, and if we had to go through the legislative process every time that changes, it would not work. So that particular bit about championships, the rest of this, the 4 parts, and Mr. Collins, if you have anything you want to highlight, I know we're trying to conserve as much time, but I know Dr. Robinson doesn't want to shorten anything that's important for them to know.
No, I think it's just important as it relates to this last agenda item where there's action required. Commissioner Tackett's already covered the bylaw changes. He mentioned those specifically as it relates to the transfer rule and then the non-domestic student change. And I think it's just another opportunity for us to highlight that on an annual basis, we require our member schools to come together and have an annual meeting. And at that annual meeting, they vote on these proposals. And it takes a significant majority, a 2/3 majority, in order to make changes in these bylaws. That is the way that our membership schools have an opportunity to have direct input. They drive the ship. It's important that we all understand, as Commissioner Tackett indicated before, we're a building, we're a staff, but more importantly, we are the makeup of our member schools. And this action item reflects what their desires and wishes are. And as Commissioner Tackett also mentioned, we continue to monitor and have these discussions about various items around the transfer rule and other things as he's detailed today. But we appreciate your attention to these items and hope that you will find them favorable.
And thank you, Dr. Robinson and Vice Chair Young, for all of your communication over the years and continuing that. We really appreciate that. And with that, Mr. Allen, I believe it's your item to make sure we do the right thing.
Thank you. Madam Chair, at this time, we can entertain any questions from board members. And if there's a motion to approve the amendments to the regulation.
I would ask that we discuss the item under a motion. So I'm going to ask the board to present a motion to approve the amendment to 702 KAR 7065, the designation of agent to manage middle and high school interscholastic athletics. May I have such a motion?
Randy Poe, I make such a motion.
Is there a second?
Steve Trimble, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Now, are there questions regarding this matter? Commissioner Tackett, I think you and your team have given us a very oh, yes, Dr. Young.
I'm sorry, I just double checking. I didn't see the actual markup in the regulation in our notes, but I do see a chart on page 3 of the staff note. So that confirms for me the portions that would have been changed, right, Todd? Okay.
The body of the regulation itself, the only change is to the documents incorporated by reference. That's where the change.
And so that's why the bylaws are listed on the chart.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I knew what I was voting on. Thank you.
Other questions? Comments? Then I'll put the matter to you for a vote. Dr. Jones, would you please call the roll for a vote?
And again, please state your name and record your vote when your name is called. Holly Bloodworth.
Holly Bloodworth, I vote yes.
Harold McKinney.
Sorry, Harold McKinney votes yes.
Thank you. Justin Pate.
Justin Pate, yes.
Julie Pyle.
Julie Pyle, yes.
Randy Poe.
Randy Poe, yes.
Sharon Robinson.
Sharon Robinson, yes.
Lee Todd.
Lee Todd, yes.
Steve Trimble.
Steve Trimble, yes.
Lou Young.
Lou Young, yes.
Voting is complete.
We have a motion that carries. Thank you, Commissioner Tackett, and to your team. Thank you, Mr. Allen, for your help in presenting this matter. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Now we turn our attention to a discussion related to 2024-25 student group performance. Continuing our discussion from December, the regular board meeting, and in response to significant interest from the board, we look forward to today's presentation from KDE Associate Commissioner Jennifer Stafford, Chief Performance Officer Karen Dodd, Strategic Analyst Lindsay McKinney, and Chief Academic Officer Mickey Manali. This presentation is intended to support the discussion-based engagement with board members following the summary level presentation from the KDE team. Members should bring forward their questions and discussion. There is a significant amount of data associated with the preparation for this discussion, and those data have all been made available to you. So I'm now going to call on Jennifer to get us started.
Well, thank you, Chair Robinson, and good morning, members of the board. It's the first time I think that the accountability system has been compared to the transfer portal. So it's an interesting comparison there. But you're right. The discussion here today is a continuation of the data at a glance discussion that we had in December. Board members were interested in more detailed, specific information as it relates to student group performance. Members also expressed a desire for possible reasons for the gaps that are happening among our student demographic groups, as well as to discuss actions that the board could consider to take. So as we look at the data, it clearly demonstrates that there are, despite improvements that we've seen, achievement gaps persist across race, across gender, ethnicity, language, disability groups, and particularly across socioeconomic status. So Glyptis, if you, Dr. Jones, if you'll go to the next slide, please. We'll start out by looking at the disaggregated groups by student groups. Then Karen Dodd and Leslie McKinney from the Office of the Commissioner will discuss some national research and Kentucky data analysis, and Mickey Marinelli will provide information on efforts to support student growth and continuous improvement. Before we get started, I wanted just to call your attention. There are 2 slide decks in the board portal. One is this overview PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through, and that was updated last night. Dr. Jones shared that, and it's also in the portal dated yesterday 2/4. The other slide deck contains over 200 slides. So we wanted to make sure you had all the information, and it's called the February KBE data slides. So it contains student performance by group on all content areas. So across all of our content areas that we assess through the Kentucky Summative Assessment, through NAEP. You had the presentation in December on the Reading and Math 2024 data, and you have some disaggregated data in that KBE data sets on both NAEP and ACT. And then there are also slides to support that strategic review of the national research and the analysis of the achievement gaps in Kentucky, and the additional Kentucky's implementation efforts. So this overview slide is what we'll go through, but know that that additional data is in that other presentation. Next slide, please. So one goal of today is to draw a clear picture of our student performance to help the board determine some next steps or some actions that the board can take to address gaps. So we wanted to ground our conversation in the actions that the board may consider to take to address these disparities. So we're going to start there so that throughout the presentation, the board can consider how each piece of the information and the data that is presented could possibly lead to actions and possible desires of the board would want to take. So we're just going to start at a high level, that a few steps that the board could take, including raising awareness of the persistent achievement gaps. So having conversations like the ones that we've had today or are having, so that the conversation continues to be a central piece of the discussion as we look at our programs, at our data. We also, as you heard multiple times this morning and yesterday afternoon, the need for funding. You heard from Associate Commissioner this morning Beth talked about the need for additional funds for our career and technical education programs. In December, you heard from Dr. Kelly Foster and how her and her teams used funds that were left over to support schools that were on the verge of having a federal classification, and how those funds and those efforts improved the performance of students, and those schools didn't fall into those federal classifications. So the board could take other actions, such as highlighting the importance of opportunity access through policies. As the board discussed yesterday, House Bill 257 and the desire to emphasize those vibrant learning experiences, and the commissioner shared this morning some of those opportunities that students have that should be given and provided to all students, and have those engaging, vibrant learning experiences. And we could look to some policies around expanding access to things such as advanced coursework, resources, supports, and so forth. Mickey's going to show evidence of how evidence-based practices are showing some promise. The board can continue to support those efforts and those evidence-based practices that have proven themselves. And then support collaboration. So encouraging those partnerships, like we heard from Beth this morning, that those collaborations with the business in our communities and bringing them together, that is part of the, again, that House Bill 257 and the United We Learn initiative, so that communities come together and share in the goals of the school to advance our student achievement. So next slide, please. So we'll start with the kindergarten screen data that shows that gaps begin as early as kindergarten. So the different student demographic groups come into school with varying degrees and varying levels of readiness. So those significant differences are evident in our English learners, our students with disabilities, our African American students, and students from low incomes. And you can see this from when they start, and then that last through those persistent gaps last throughout the student's high school career. So these early gaps persist throughout their education career. So the early differences show that they start school with unequal access and unequal ability to engage in learning experiences. So next slide, please. So we mentioned in December, there have been progress toward advancing student performance since 2022. And so we've broken down here some progress indicators that show that there are real differences and real advancements happening. So I'm going to go through this slide, this elementary school performance slide, and then the middle school and high school has a similar layout. So when you see on the progress indicators, you'll see that reading proficient and distinguished rates have increased. You'll see that all students have increased from 2022 to 2025. And so you'll see that 45% of all students were at proficient and distinguished in 2022, and now they're at 49% at 2025. So that's an increase of 4% proficient and distinguished students from 22 to 25. So we started at 22 because of the consistency we have in that data. Now we do have prior data prior to the pandemic in your data sets, but we've kind of broken it between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. So you can this data demonstrate that we are seeing progress going toward the right direction to get us back to levels we were pre-pandemic. So you can see that females in reading were at 48% and increased to 51% proficient distinguished in reading. Our males have grown as well. African Americans, our students have shown growth from 24% to 28%, from 22 to 25. Our Hispanic students had the same performance level. They increased in 2023 to 35%. So overall, they've got a zero balance increase, but they did show some increase in 2023. So our ELs, again, have that same balanced, but that did show some increase in 23. Our economically disadvantaged grew from 36% to 40%. So that was a 4-point, and our special needs had a 3 percentage points gain in reading. And so you see the math, we have similar rates of increase. So what you see is that we're getting back, we are increasing. So they're making progress in our content areas, but they're not closing the gap. So what you see is that all students are going up, but some of our different demographic groups are not going up as fast or faster in order to close those gaps. So we've talked about all boats rising, and that's what we want to see. And so that's among most of our groups, then we do see that they are rising. And our science, I put the science percentage of proficient and distinguished from 22 to 25. Now, I didn't go into the demographic breakdown on science, but you do have that in the data deck slides. And so our growth areas, particularly for our elementary school, is still math trails behind reading. And again, those persistent achievement gaps are across our content areas. Next slide, please. This slide shows you just an example of a lot of the data slides over in the data deck, that you can see that we have from 18 to 2019. And in the deck, you'll see that the demographic groups and their counterpart are compared. So in this example, you see economically disadvantaged compared to non-academically or economically disadvantaged. So you have the similar display in the data groups where you have males, females, English learners compared to non-English learners, and so forth. So you have, again, that is in the other data deck. Next slide, please. In middle school, we see similar patterns. Reading and math percentages are increasing across all students. Our student groups are generally moving up. So we're seeing those good outcomes that are promising, and we see those progress indicators. In science, again, we have increases in science and social studies. Our areas of concern or growth areas would be our NAEP in our middle school. There's some uneven recovery post-pandemic. Now, as we mentioned in December, we in Kentucky are above the national average. So Kentucky is trending in the right direction, whereas sometimes the nation is stagnant or even decreasing. So that's, again, an area to celebrate, but we, again, need to continue to make those positive improvements. The gaps persist in middle school and then across our different groups. In high school, our high school performance shows a very similar pattern, that we've got student groups rising and performance increasing, with social studies increasing as well. And then again, just a reminder that Kentucky ranks 4th among all states testing at 100%. And we've seen with ACT, we have seen the composite score go down as well. Science at high school continues to be a growth area, even though we had a new assessment with new standards and performance achievement levels. And the gaps remain through high school. So from kindergarten through high school, those gaps persist. Now the next slide, you may consider that while we're seeing some decreases in ACT, how there could be increases in the Kentucky summative assessment while we're seeing decreases in the ACT. And I just wanted to share that those two tests, they're different. Kentucky summative assessment is our state assessment. It's a customized assessment that meets the expectations of our students and what our teachers are teaching our students around the Kentucky academic standards. So those KSA tests are grade level standards. It's a test based on our Kentucky academic standards, and it reflects that grade level mastery. It doesn't relate to readiness for identification of what we would call post-secondary readiness, as ACT would define that. So there's different definitions of with our achievement levels. The ACT, whereas, is based on the college readiness standards, and those are developed by ACT, and they have their benchmarks that indicate a likelihood of achieving C or better in first year courses. And those are set by the Council on Post-Secondary Education. So those aren't grade level standards. Those are standards that the ACT for their college readiness standards. So those go a bit beyond what our grade level expectation is for that. Also, there's different scales. So the KSA uses terms such as novice, apprentice, proficient, and distinguished, that's tied again to a Kentucky academic standards. And then ACT uses a different scale for those cut scores. So it is possible that a student could be proficient on KSA, but still be below those ACT benchmarks. So let me pause there, and as we go to the next slide. So again, we have seen real progress with the gains that we've seen on the Kentucky summative assessment at all 3 levels. So that's to be celebrated. But again, those persistent gaps persist across our student demographic groups, and that is affirmed by the NAEP as well as the ACT student group performance. We're seeing those similar patterns. Performance is rising or holding steady, but those groups are not closing those gaps. In high school readiness, the KSA gains are encouraging, but again, the ACT indicates there's more work to be done around those college readiness benchmarks and needing a boost there. So at this point, I will turn it over to Karen and Leslie for the research in Kentucky analysis.
Thank you, Jennifer. We can go to the next slide. So my team looked at both national data and took a little bit deeper dive into Kentucky's numbers. So you're going to hear just a reiteration of some of what Jennifer said, but just to share with you that national data, first of all, we do see, as Jennifer said, that it is persistent across the various student groups. We've also observed it not only with assessments, but graduation and opportunity. So these are all national trends. Some of the words that they use as opposed to achievement gaps would be opportunity gaps or educational debt rooted in systematic conditions. You can go to the next slide. This is kind of our caveat page, just to let you know that when we start looking at this data, it is to inform decisions, and it doesn't really give us an underlying causation. So we can't say why exactly these achievement gaps exist, but we can look at patterns and start digging into what is working when it comes to the things that we've been trying. We can go to the next slide. So here we have our systematic driver. So one of the things that we saw in the national data was that there is a strong tie to socioeconomic conditions. So knowing that, I asked my team to dive a little bit deeper into the Kentucky data to look at it controlling for socioeconomic conditions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie McKinney, who did that analysis for us.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to share a snapshot of some of the data that our team's been working on in connection to the research around the achievement gap work. And continuing where Karen left off, the research would largely suggest that while individual family level poverty can certainly be an obstacle, school and community level poverty seems to act as the accelerant for the obstacle. It takes the existing achievement gap and essentially just widens it, making it even harder for traditional teaching methods to close that gap. Next slide, please. We do want to briefly share some things we know about achievement gaps, particularly from observed trends and local contextual factors. For example, in alignment with data that Dr. Stafford shared earlier, and when looking at both the larger body of research, it's clear that not all students are starting off from the same place. By the time children get to their first day of kindergarten, those gaps are already very visible. And unfortunately, research would indicate if we are unable to step in early with the right resource and supports, that gap is likely to stay with them all the way through graduation. Additionally, research points to the reality achievement gaps being systemic in nature. And because our Kentucky data mirrors that national trend, we know these gaps aren't just happening in a few random spots or in places that are falling short, but instead they're widespread structural barriers that affect students everywhere in and outside of Kentucky and within all of our school districts. And finally, the research we looked at also points out that these gaps are not our destiny. We can certainly make improvements, and they're possible with long-term commitments. We have seen some progress that I'm going to show you in just a moment, for example, in elementary reading scores, but the data would suggest progress is rarely a straight line and can be uneven, requiring sustained long-term support and resources. Next slide, please. As you know, the achievement gaps aren't just snapshots in time, but they're persistent patterns. And due to the time constraints of today, we're only going to be highlighting elementary data, starting with recent trends in math, using the Kentucky Summative Assessment results. Dr. Stafford shared some of these results in the earlier slides, but we want to share some visual support to those findings, specifically highlighting where race, ethnicity, and the poverty factor sort of converge. And looking at the two graphs here, you're going to see the graph on the left shows trends for elementary students receiving free and reduced lunch, or students we're going to identify as in poverty, while the one on the right tracks students who are identified as impoverished. The first thing that lightly jumps out is the sheer distance between these two graphs and these two groups. It's clear that the economic circumstances are massive drivers to those results, but it's important to look at how that is actually working within these subgroups. As we stated earlier, research supports poverty acts as a multiplier and is not a standalone factor. And you can see that when you look at the graph on the right. Even when we take the poverty factor out of the equation, those gaps between racial and ethnic groups don't go away. In fact, in many of the cases, they actually get wider. And this shows us that we aren't just dealing with an economic issue in isolation, but likely with structural barriers that are persistent regardless of the student's family's economic status. Next slide, please. When we look specifically at reading for the same groups and in that same grade band, the data tells us a more active story than what we saw with math. Again, the graph on the left tracks those that are in poverty, the one on the right, those who are not. And we are, just like with Jennifer's data, looking specifically at what we're going to call post-pandemic times, 2022 through 2025. And just as she shared, almost every group did show improvement. But it's the students in poverty who appear to be making the most consistent gains here in reading. If you notice that graph on the left, their lines are trending upward, and more importantly, they're starting to close closer together. This could suggest that the investments that they've been made in literacy are impacting those most vulnerable students. But we see something very different when we look at the non-poverty students on the right. Those scores are less consistent. Those lines aren't collectively rising steadily. Even though reading scores are going up, they're not rising at the same level within those groups and across those groups. And the gaps between the racial groups actually remain wider than the poverty groups. So while we're successfully lifting the floor for reading, our big takeaway here would be that the economic gap between these two groups is still exceptionally high. The good news in these results is, especially for those students in poverty, would support the research that we know is out there, where we can disrupt the trends of achievement gaps with the right supports in place and the right resources. However, we still, according to this data, at least have a good bit of structural distance to begin closing that gap. Next slide, please. Our next steps as a research team are to move from identifying areas where these gaps are persistent and work at a deeper level to better understand them. We hope to dig beneath the surface of the data, like you just saw, and then consider in the research and our results as it relates to environmental and contextual factors. This is going to include us gaining some insight into bright spots where gaps are successfully being closed across the Commonwealth. We also want to consider that poverty as a multiplier and understand the why behind potential regional differences that might be occurring in Kentucky. This is going to mean us looking at community level variables like local resource allocations, specific neighborhood stressors to see exactly how they're impacting different student groups and their performance. And we also want to expand the focus of our work to specifically integrate data for students with disabilities and our English language learners. These students often face overlapping challenges that don't always show up in a single poverty versus non-poverty analysis. So we want to better understand that for long-term planning. And finally, we know that the starting point matters. And so we're committed to exploring specific environmental factors like early access to literacy and community resources that determine whether or not our students go into kindergarten ready. And so next slide, please.
So what does all of this mean for us? It means actually some good news. It means that these gaps are not necessarily permanent. There are things that we can do and things that we are doing, such as ensuring high quality instruction is widely accessible, prioritizing early intervention, and pairing accountability with capacity building. So I'm going to turn it over to Mickey Marianelli, who's going to talk more about the things that are going on to close this achievement gap.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be with you today. And my goal of this portion of the presentation is to highlight both what's happening nationally to support student growth, and then to take more of a Kentucky-specific look at what we're doing that's intended to improve student experience and outcomes. On my next slide, I wanted to begin with the so what as well. And this is on behalf of teaching and learning and those evidence-based practices that Dr. Stafford mentioned earlier. I've included key areas for which we do need your support. And so I'll give you a second to take a look at that, but it will not surprise you. Increased access to HQIR, promotion of curriculum-based professional learning, expanding our coaching models, being able to scale the work that we're doing in the elementary space to middle and high school, but then also pouring into that critical role of the leader, the building leader with principal leadership development. And on the next slide, you have seen this before. It includes the KDE definition of high quality instructional resources, but also the evidence basis for it. And the way that we talk about high quality instructional resources, they serve as the foundation for grade level learning, but they are the floor, not the ceiling for standards aligned instruction. And so we always advise schools and districts that selection matters. And we encourage districts to develop a common vision for high quality instruction in a content area that can be used as a sieve for adopting an HQIR that aligns not only to the standards, but to their local priorities. And just as an example, in systems who are prioritizing project-based learning, HQIR can support student success in obtaining the content and skills needed to successfully apply that learning throughout the project. And I had two experiences yesterday where that really resonated with me. So there was a presentation around House Bill 44 yesterday around robotics. And within that presentation, the students shared that they were using math and specifically some trigonometry to design and improve their robots. And then, of course, we all heard Mrs. Gross's project yesterday where the students were using math to design and build the house-oramas. And so students need the math content and the practices to be able to engage successfully in these sorts of projects. But the goal for students ultimately is that they're able to have transference so that the math isn't contained to one isolated event, experience, or project, but that students are able to apply and transfer that mathematical content and skill to other problems, tasks, and school and community experiences. And as an ELA example, a class can read and discuss The Great Gatsby or an op-ed or the welding manual that Dr. Fletcher mentioned earlier. But ultimately, we want to support students in reading, analyzing, and comprehending complex grade level text so that can transfer as a life skill beyond whatever classroom experience they're engaging in. So those instructional materials need to be evidence-based, aligned to our standards for the promotion of increased access to grade level learning. The next slide gives you just sort of a state of the state, so to speak. So you can see there that this information is from RAND, and it shows the percentage growth for K-12 HQIR implementation by state for math first, and then for ELA. So Kentucky there, we're in the middle, but it's not necessarily our percentage in the middle. So you can see that for math, we have seen an increase of up to 70% adoption, so 56% growth. For ELA, we're now at 66% adoptions for 120% growth. But I wanted to show you, a lot of times like Louisiana and other states are mentioned. So if you look at Louisiana in that math column, in 2019, they were already at an 80% adoption for instructional resources for mathematics. But for ELA, they're very close to us at 68%. I want to spotlight though Tennessee, who is near the top of the ELA chart there. So they were at 23% adoption for ELA in 2019, and now they are at a 71% adoption rate. And they're going to come back into play in a moment. I've got another slide I want to share with you regarding sort of Tennessee performance and where they are. But the next slide gives you a Kentucky specific view. So this is the increased adoption rates, both for our math materials and for ELA. And I want to put that in the realm of policy for you. So Read to Succeed was passed in 2022. And the adoption of the core comprehensive HQIR for reading for K3 was required implementation in 24-25. For numeracy counts, that was adopted in 2024, and it doesn't require the implementation of those materials for K3 until 26-27. So we're seeing, though, that regardless of those policy dates, that schools and districts are making investments in those high quality materials. But the next section of the presentation is really going to focus on purposeful implementation. So simply adopting a resource or material, that's just the first step. Teachers need support around high quality professional learning and coaching, ideally, to support that implementation and alignment to school and district goals. So leadership and high quality professional learning are key drivers. And on the next slide, you'll see that RAND data and research from Carnegie reveals that in schools with required HQIRs, principals are more likely to be engaged in promoting strong instructional practices, encourage lesson plans based on those materials, and that they are a part of observation cycles. In terms of professional learning, there is evidence that shows that when teachers participated in curriculum-based professional learning, their student test scores improved by 9%. They feel more positively about the curriculum, and they show a deeper level of implementation. And why does any of that matter? And for us, again, it's about increasing that access to grade level learning, not for just some students, but for all students, and having not minions, but really ensuring that no matter the classroom that a student finds him or herself in, they have that same access to standards aligned, high quality instruction. On the next slide, you'll see here, it shows that leaders committed to HQR implementation significantly increase the usage of that materials. And that's just, I think that's common sense, but this matters again because it means more consistent access to grade level learning and standards aligned instruction for students. On the next slide, I think this is super important. So RAND data reveals the more effective the professional learning that a teacher and principal will have, the less likely they are to view materials as being too challenging for students. And, anything on our approved list for reading and for mathematics, there's at least 80% alignment to standards, but educators can be confident that it is aligned to grade level learning expectations. So what happens is if folks view it as being too challenging, then they have a tendency to simplify those learning experiences, and some students are never afforded access to grade level learning. And if they don't have access to grade level learning, we will never see the reduction in that gap because they're not even given the chance to engage with grade level learning. This next slide is the Tennessee slide that I mentioned previously. So Tennessee found that districts where teachers' professional learning communities, so their PLCs, focus on lesson internalization and student work analysis have seen twice the growth in student proficiency compared to the state average. And so these PLCs are focusing on analyzing student work, internalizing upcoming lessons, being able to practice and work together around some of the more complex and key instructional routines. So in that chart, the lesson prep districts are the striped bar, and then the yellow or orange are the statewide outcomes. And Kentucky now does have access to protocols for unit and lesson internalization, lesson rehearsal, and student work analysis. And in our key network, so the Kentucky Early Literacy Leadership Network as an example, we support those leaders and principals, coaches, and teachers, and thinking through how that could be structured in their own systems and set up to function effectively for the benefit of educators and for students. I'm going to take a little bit further dive into Kentucky's implementation efforts. So on the next slide, you can see per our RAND data and the ICF third-party evaluation of our reading academies and literacy coaching model, encouragement of Kentucky principals in using HQIRs as a basis for daily lessons is growing. So in ELA, increasing percentages of Kentucky teachers said that their principal does encourage them to utilize their materials. An analysis of KSA reading data by ICF found that grade 4 and 5 students enrolled in districts that had adopted and implemented an HQIR for literacy had higher reading scores than students who did not attend such districts. And so we've given you the breakdown for English, math, and science. And Dr. Todd, we're going to speak more to this in the March meeting, but I wanted you to see that we are seeing increases in the utilization of those materials in English and math, but we've got a bit more to do to support the field and having access to HQR for science specifically. On the next slide, you have seen much of this information before, but I feel it's worth repeating today. So in terms of our Kentucky Reading Academy's letters training outcomes, that first bullet there is important. So of the 7,000 folks who are participating in that professional learning, pre and post assessment average increased from 65 to 95%. Letters trained teachers who worked with literacy coaches outperformed their non-letters trained counterparts, specifically in the utilization of phonemic awareness and phonics instruction at the K-3 level. And then Kentucky educators also reported that letters participation motivated their implementation of their district HQLR because they better understood the evidence basis behind those materials. And then you've seen this as well. Dr. Fletcher has spoken to this. I've been able to elevate it in the past, but ICF found statistically significant growth among students who were taught by letters trained teachers. You can see there in grade 5, grade 5 students taught by letters trained teachers over 2 consecutive years had significantly higher reading scores compared to those who did not. And that trend was also reported for special education students in grades 4 and 5 with 2 consecutive years of a letters trained teacher. What's not in the PowerPoint, and Glyptosan, I'm going to go off script here just for a moment, but I wanted to bring forward some of the information we have about novice reduction. So Dr. Stafford, spoke so eloquently to the proficient and distinguished outcomes for students and where we are. But I do think that the novice reduction that we're seeing deserves a part of this conversation. It is unlikely that in 1 year's time, a student who is at the novice level will automatically jump to becoming a proficient reader or a proficient mathematician for that grade level. So it takes some time. And what we found was that for African American students, those reported as economically disadvantaged, and students with IEPs in grades 3 through 7, all of those student groups saw novice reduction and proficient distinguished increase. And so I want to speak to these a little bit, and forgive me, I didn't have this ready when our slides were due, but we can get this to you after the fact. But so for those student groups, for African American students specifically, they saw at grade 3, novice decreased 5%, and there was a 2% increase of proficient and distinguished. But I want to speak these others because this grade 4 and 5 is going to keep coming back to us. Grade 4 novice decreased 10%, grade 5 decreased 12%, grade 6 decreased 12%, and then grade 7 was at 9%. And so the proficient distinguished increases range anywhere from the 2% I mentioned up to 8% in grade 6. So there is movement from novice into that apprentice category for those particular student groups. For economically disadvantaged, grade 3 novice decreased 4%, but grade 4 at 8%, grade 5, 9%, grade 6, 8%, and at grade 7, 6%. So anywhere from 4 to 9% decrease of novice. And then for proficiency and distinguished for those economically disadvantaged, we see a 2% gain up to an 8% gain. And then lastly, students with IEPs, so at grade 3, novice decreased 2%, grade 4 novice decreased 8%, grade 5, 8%, grade 6, 9%, and then grade 7, 8%. And so their proficient and distinguished increased by 1 up to 5%. Now, for EL students, we did not see as much of a reduction of novice until grade 6. And I think that there are many reasons for that. But also for Hispanic and Latino students, we do see some decreases in grades 4 and grade 5. But again, it's grade 6 where they have a 6% reduction in novice. And so we are not where we want to be for all students, but we are seeing movement. We are seeing movements as a result of the efforts that schools and districts are doing to support literacy instruction and mathematics instruction. So Dr. Jones, the next slide, to get back to the presentation, I just wanted to bring forward again that the ICF evaluation for our letters participants. You can see there the graphic, but they found that those letters trained teachers report increased confidence, an increased application of the science of reading strategies and structured literacy strategies to all tiers of instruction, so tier 1 and beyond, and then also an increased motivation to implement the HQIR. And then the next slide, there was one particular case study. So as a part of that evaluation, there are 3 case studies, and these have been shared with you. They're on our website as well. But there was an elementary school in Kenton County, one in Perry County, and then one in Graves County in Western Kentucky. And so one of these systems shared that following students' completion of an iReady assessment, the number of students across the district who had reading improvement plans decreased substantially from 90 to 50. And the students identified for those reading improvement plans would be at risk of not meeting grade level benchmark as identified by their universal screener and also the diagnostic assessment. So we are seeing a reduction as well in those reading improvement plans. The next few slides are going to talk about the coaching model, and you've seen this, but I just want to point out, if your eye goes to anything, if you look at that 25-26, this is where we are right now. So we have 35 school-based coaches. Our regional directors, literacy directors, are supporting up to 75 districts, and we have our 8 regional principal support leaders who are supporting both our KYLN districts or any district involved in one of our networks, as well as our partner schools where our school-based literacy coaches are placed. But that matters because the next slide, I want you to see this quote. I think it's super powerful. So the ICF evaluation found that the integration of coaching alongside with letters was critical for ensuring effective utilization of those materials. And I want you to look at this coach. This is the quote. The administrators reported that coaches supported building-wide implementation and were especially valuable in letters in schools where there was limited letters participation. But the administrator said, my coach and I would go to classrooms and walk through together, and we'd come out and we would debrief. She would teach me. So then when I would give feedback to the teacher, I could be very specific. Without her, without that literacy coach, we would have been way off track, even with the right resource. So having the resource alone is not necessarily enough to ensure that educators are fully supported in being able to implement grade level instruction to the level that we would hope. On the next slide, some of you have seen this before. I think I was able to share this in the United We Learn committee meeting, but you can see there, and it's obvious, over the course of the school year, coaches are influencing HQR implementation, and so it's up to 60% by the end of that school year. And then the next slide, I think this is the most powerful. Over 85% of observed lessons by coaches and administrators had a grade appropriate text at the center of that lesson by April 2025, which was up from 57% in September. And again, that matters because that's demonstrating the access to grade level learning for those students. And then I'll end with just one further quote. So this was from the ICF evaluation as well, but we are seeing that coaching cycles are contributing not only to the implementation of HQIR, but that there are improved student outcomes as a result. And so it says these changes in instruction corresponded with reports of notable growth. And so one of the coaches was able to share for the end of the year assessment, and she's referring to the screening assessment. My kindergarten teacher had 95% of her kindergartners on grade level. Yes, so that was super, super exciting. Now, we want that to be 100%, but I also think it's to be celebrated that we are seeing growth in that area. So board members, thank you for your patience. I will end where I began and ask for your continued support on all of the above as it relates to teaching and learning and improve student experience and outcomes. And Dr. Stafford, I think you have one final slide.
I do. Thank you. Thanks to Karen and Leslie and Mickey. The next slide brings us back to our boards and possible next steps. The board has always been an advocate for all students and providing opportunities and support and letting students know that they're valued, they're seen. And so I turn it to Chair Robinson for a discussion of what are the board's priorities. You've heard several different opportunities here that for support of funding, support of policies, and highlighting the awareness. So we want to open and turn to you for your discussion at this point of your next steps. And then, of course, any questions that you may have.
I thank all of you and each of you for a really comprehensive presentation of this matter. And board members, I'm going to kind of challenge us to think in terms of what are our goals? I mean, we see some glimmers of hope that should be quite inspiring, I would say emboldening, to suggest that we think in terms of committing ourselves to tying our ask for the resources and our advocacy for the resources based on targets that we want to identify in areas where we see we've got to make progress. So there's enough progress to suggest that progress is really possible. So I'm just saying let's think in terms of our own targets now. Lou.
Wow, thank you so much to the whole team for today's deep dive into student achievement. You guys threaded a tough needle there in terms of achievement gaps, but really intentional focus on specific ways this board can better support student achievement as we support school districts across the Commonwealth. We are a policy-making body, so those clear indicators to guide the ongoing work of KBE are really timely and much appreciated. We have to begin with honesty. Poverty matters. It affects access to healthcare, housing stability, trauma, nutrition, technology, and time. All of those things shape the experiences that our kids have, the lived experiences of kids and their families in our schools. But by acknowledging that reality, it's not the same as lowering expectations. Poverty does shape the starting line, but it doesn't have to define the finish line for us. So while we can't control every external factor, we are absolutely responsible for what happens inside our schools. So this conversation is not about excuses. It's an urgency conversation, Dr. Robinson, in my opinion. When gaps appear, they should never signal a student deficit mentality. Instead, they are signals to us and to school leadership across this Commonwealth for action. They tell us where to focus, where to invest, and where to innovate so that every learner has the genuine access to real opportunities to achieve. I think our students, families, and communities deserve the honesty that we've faced today as we think about those barriers, but they also deserve adults like those on this board to recognize that those barriers should not become ceilings for our kiddos. We will not deny the reality, but we will also not give up to it. We have to respond with urgency and innovation. You guys know I believe in Kentucky United We Learn. When we offer kids the authentic learning, meaningful feedback and multiple ways to demonstrate what they know, demonstrate mastery, we expand opportunity for every learner. So our challenge is not to explain away these gaps. I think the team did a good job of modeling that. Our challenge is to close them. So that means ensuring students have access to effective teachers, rigorous curriculum, vibrant learning experiences, targeted intervention, letters, enrichment opportunities, and a sense of belonging. It means designing systems that provide more time, more support, and more pathways, not fewer. So just wanted a little bit of a soapbox opportunity there to just kind of talk about where we are as a team and how we face that very intentionally, like the KDE team did for us today. And Dr. Robinson, I applaud your notion that this should be about clarity around these actions and goals for us as a board team. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young. I'm going to ask Dr. Todd to, he's got his hand up. If he would unmute yourself.
I really appreciate this presentation. I think we've talked about how we got to communicate things that work. And I do think there are examples where teachers who have had correct, well, you can get the HURs out there, but you got to give the training to the teacher how to use those and implement those. But I know I've seen results where some of these gaps are closed in classrooms where the teacher is as excitable as the one we had speak to us today. And they get across the message and get the motivation up, get absenteeism disappear because they're really offering something that's outstanding. I've been very impressed with the numeracy funding because one thing in particular, the number of administrators that have volunteered to take the training. They were going to have a couple of hundred, they've got about 225 or something now. Because if you don't get it at that level, you're not going to get it throughout the system. So you talk about a whole product, you've got to have the available materials, you've got to have administrative support, you've got to have teacher support. And I think if we pull out those things that show where some of these improvements are made with economically disadvantaged children and others, but they make real strides toward improvement when they have the whole package offered to them, because it's in there. And if something's good, you just need to do more of it. And I think that's our message we need to tell people is we know things that work, but we got to have the money to make it work. But thank you all so much. I'm very, very impressed.
Let's see. I'm having difficulty finding those who have their hands up, though I know there are those that have their hands up.
I see Dr. Pate.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I wanted to, I think we all look at this through our lens, through different viewpoints. But one of the things I've been thinking about is the work we're doing on the High School Transformation Network team. And one of those goals is the sharing of best practice. And we've talked about, how to look at making sure we're sharing best practices amongst school districts that can emulate, what type of best practice work is being done. For instance, the high school I graduated from may not be able to implement everything that Seneca or, Dunbar, some of the larger schools are doing. So how do we create those like mission, like demographic, districts together? So Karen, I can't remember if it was you or Leslie, we were talking about one of the things that stuck with me is it's not just the socioeconomic status of the student that can exacerbate these gaps. It's also the socioeconomic conditions surrounding the counties or the cities, of these school districts. So I think, Robbie, maybe Lou Glipta saying as we're doing some of this work and gleaning some of this best practice, we can also kind of pay attention to where are those innovative practices within some of these lower socioeconomic conditioned counties and city districts that could be shared with, some of those like schools across the state. Because I hadn't thought about that, Leslie and Karen, when you were talking about that, and then specifically to have mentioned, and we're not going to close those gaps through the same traditional types of teaching methodologies that have been employed, year after year, decade after decade. So we know that we're looking at that through the innovation lens with the High School Transformation Network team. I just thought that was a really interesting caveat for us as we're going into that second team meeting to think about in the sharing of best practice, really taking a look at the socioeconomic conditions in these counties and districts as we are sharing those best practices. So thank you for that. And GA, help us, help me remember that I had a great thought at one point in my life.
It'll come to you because we're used to them from you.
Well, I wrote it down
Alfonso.
on my sticky note, so I think I'll keep it. I'm usually
There
pretty
you
good
go.
if I can get it to a sticky note.
Matt, just to hear a teacher voice on this, Alfonso.
Hi. First of all, thank you for putting together all this data and all this information. I'm just gonna speak for the topics that I can speak better in regard to this. It really caught my attention that when reading over all this data that was provided and matching the call for actions to advance student achievement and address gaps at the beginning and at the end. The only two references that I have found throughout this entire presentation to English learners is maybe two. I heard over the presentation how we have referred to our English learners from the perspective of poverty, which I agree with what Dr. Jan said, that poverty comes in many shapes and many different ways, right? But if we truly want, and echoing what Harper said before about if we want to include all students, right? When it comes to seeing proposals or suggestions or initiatives for this specific group of students, I cannot seem to find it. As I said before, the only mention I see is those two that I said before in the slides. But when it comes to those suggestions at the end, yes, I understand that we need to raise awareness of persistent achievement gaps, but that's it. So I cannot help but wondering what collaborations have happened, for example, within KBE, to work with our consultants that are working on English language learners. What do you mean by scaling the initiatives that KBE is putting out there regarding socioeconomic and students with disabilities and also English language learners? I would like to know more about that because I don't see it in here. As a teacher, as I said before, yes, this tells me that we are doing a lot of things, but it really issues me a lot of questions as to, okay, we are doing things, but where are we seeing those results, especially when we come to those specific groups, other than just saying, well, it's because factors that we cannot control, the socioeconomics, the poverty, legislature, but yeah.
So, Jennifer, you want to address that specifically? I do believe that where we do have specific goals, achievement goals for English learners. We have different populations throughout the state of Kentucky where that English learner student populations factor in and count a lot and their needs cannot be hidden. So they are definitely a part of the awareness of the intervention. I'm going to ask, for example, will letters and our math initiatives help in a specific way the work that we must do for those who have responsibility for teaching English learners?
And Dr. Stafford, may I cut in just a little bit here? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. So Alfonso, I do want to admit that we we fully acknowledge that this has been a gap in terms of the supports that we're providing. You know, Dr. Foster's team has a beautiful Title III team, and it's connected much more to funding. But I think I hope you've had a chance now to talk to Will Spalding, who came to us. He was a principal at a newcomer academy. He was working as an English language director in Warren County. But even before Will joined us in the OTL, we were making a much more conscious effort, to Dr. Robinson's point, to ensure that English language development teachers were aware of the opportunity to participate in things like letters. So those structured literacy practices, you know, there's a big difference between supporting toward the WIDA standards, and that's an important part of what needs to happen for those students. But we also want them to have rich experiences in Tier 1 connected to grade level learning. And so it's that structured literacy approach that we are seeing that will have an impact on student outcomes and student ability to read and navigate, specifically in English. And so we've kind of changed the way that we're promoting any professional learning opportunity to schools and districts around who should be at the table, how they're looking at those materials, because even within HQIR, there are specific supports for English learners. But you've got to be aware that those live within those materials, and you've got to have those teachers at the table to be able to have rich discussion around that. So we are actively working to do a much better job of supporting those educators. This summer, there will be sort of there used to be some annual summits for English language directors and teachers, but that kind of went by the way of the wayside for a little while. So we are having another round of those in this upcoming summer. So we are working to address those gaps because those students matter and they deserve the same access to high quality instruction that each and every student across our state deserves. So I hope that makes you feel at least a little bit better in terms of the presentation. And I did not in any way mean to omit that, because that certainly falls under evidence-based practices and what we want in terms of the best interest of those students.
Just a quick
And
follow-up to what
Mickey,
you
I'll
said.
also add, oh, I'm sorry, Alonzo.
No, I was about to say, quick follow-up to what you said. Is there going to be any way to track the data about how ELD students benefit from teachers who have gone through the letters training? And not just in terms of WIDA, but also like you were saying before, in terms of like, education and whatnot.
So what I would love to see that we don't currently have access to unless it's voluntarily submitted into Infinite Campus are the screening and diagnostic results for those students. So we really are limited at the KDE, again, unless voluntarily submitted by KSA. And I do believe, and Dr. Stafford, I don't want to speak to you about WIDA outcomes, but I'm sure that that's also something that we would have at the state level. But also, Alfonso, we can see how the teachers are providing feedback in the professional learning, and at least in terms of a qualitative sense, how they feel that professional learning is applicable to their students and to the classrooms that they're engaging in real time. And so we want to continue to track that in addition to watching for student growth in any and all of those mechanisms that we have at our disposal.
Julie.
Yes, I did like the K readiness slide. I think that makes a case for the pre-K for all initiative, and agree with Dr. Pate on the sharing the best practices. But I'm going to be a little bit of a downer here because I'm looking at this data and I'm not really seeing it move. And so if I'm a legislator looking at this data and I have people, even if I was a business owner, asking to put more money into something that we're not seeing a result, like the lines are pretty well staying flat, I would really start kind of questioning things and wondering, are we doing the right things to make an impact? And is that investment worth it? Is the ROI there? So sometimes I look at things from more the critical side. You know, we ask our kids to be critical thinkers. Part of critical thinking is asking the deep, hard questions when the data isn't really kind of correlating type thing. The other thing was, Mickey, you were talking about the move of the novice numbers. What was the time period for those numbers?
It compares progress from 21-22 to 24-25.
Okay. Okay. So that's just the way I'm looking at this. I think another action item that we need to have on there is that as board members, it's also our job to analyze, critically think, and ask the deep, hard questions, because sometimes when you're in it, you end up with some groupthink and you're too close to the weeds, where we as board members have completely different perspectives from different industries and things. And I think that's part of our job, is to ask some of the deep, hard questions, because that's what makes us better. So I'd like to see something like that added to the action list.
Thank you, Julie. Holly?
Just to follow up on Julie's question about the kindergarten readiness scores, does that score include children, like the kids that are ready for kindergarten? Does that include all the kids that did preschool and the kids that did not do preschool? And do the scores look very different comparing kids that attended preschool and did not attend preschool? So that's one question I just had as Julie was talking. But the thing that I wanted to just to mention is I've had a few teachers that are actually really great teachers that have been talking about how the high quality instructional resources make them feel less empowered as teachers. And they feel like that they're being told they can't do anything else, basically. And so they feel very like disheartened as teachers. And I think in a time when we're trying to recruit teachers and retain teachers, we want to make sure our messaging and maybe what we're telling teachers about is how those high quality instructional resources can be used to create more vibrant learning. I think they're great. I think they're important, but right now they're feeling, some of them anyway, are feeling like it's kind of scripted and it's taking all my teacher autonomy away. So I think we just maybe need to look at our messaging on that, and maybe in some of the groups that we have focused around high quality instructional resources. I know the focus has been to be very intentional with it, follow it exactly. And I think some of those, especially really creative teachers that do have really great success in the classroom, feel like that part of them is being kind of squashed. So just something to think about.
Chair Robinson, may I speak to that just a little bit?
Please, but and this might be a conversation that we need to continue during our work session meetings. I don't think we're going to get to where we need to be at this meeting, but please, yes, address that topic. And I saw another hand.
And I'll just be very brief. So we feel as if in our conversations with district and school leaders and teachers within PLCs, if they are able to go through some of those unit and lesson internalization protocols, our language within those is very clear that they can and should be making smart adjustments for the benefit of meeting the diverse needs of learners in their classrooms, to align with local priorities. So there is nothing in our communication that requires absolute rigidity to the resources. But I do think Board Member Bloodworth, it's going to be important for us to continue to speak that, because if the materials are new and if there's not funding for professional learning, either from the publisher or kind of those enabling conditions set up within the district, then they can feel as if they must stick exactly to the script without having any ability to lean into the artistry of instruction, when supplementation is appropriate and what that can look like. And so we've got some work to do on that. And I agree with you. We want to support teachers, not hinder their creativity.
Board members, in the interest of time, and we do have a guest online, I'm going to remind us that we will be continuing this conversation about student achievement and subgroup issues at our next meeting when we talk about other interventions that come into play. And I'm going to try and articulate a sense that I have. We're looking for leverage points and points of strategic advocacy and policy on our part to speed things up. Dr. Poe, you're going to have the last word on this.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll keep it where it's not a question coming back, but a statement to add to our next section. I want to agree with Dr. Pate, who said the things, and every speaker here, because I went through the 300 some or 200 some page slides. So we do need more conversation on this. But what I do want to bring up that I did not see, and that was my request, and I had talked to the commissioner on this directly, is I want to see direct correlation to the activities that we're talking about. We talked about a 95%, but those things on these high correlation and quality of the qualitative analysis, I really don't need more of those. I need quantitative analysis. Where's the direct correlation to the improvements? We asked about CSI schools and TSI schools. We spend millions of dollars on that. What's the direct correlation to any of these things? Because it would seem like they would be using these strategies even better. Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they stagnant? And I also would like to see, we keep talking about improvements based on the data that I've seen in these graphs. It's going to take us over 30 years when I started dividing out years. We don't have 30 years to wait. So let's also talk about not just improvements that we're doing, but what transformations are we also doing, as Dr. Pate talked about. We have a high school committee. We probably should also have a middle school committee, and we probably should have an elementary committee also looking at transformation, because I'm not sure that our currently designed system that we continue to do is going to bring us the results that we're looking at long term. So I agree with you, board chair. We need more time, and the virtual session will be great. But if we could add those things about the other practices that we're promoting and actually do direct correlations with the outcomes so that we can see quantitative data. In the reading, for example, I have asked, and I spoke with the commissioner directly on this too. We talk about in our data points there about poverty and poverty being that multiplier. But I have highlighted 4 county school systems that are defying the odds, that are high poverty and are high proficient readers. So what are they doing? Have we made visits there? As Dr. Pate said, and what correlations are we having with those that's really defying the odds so we can dig deeper into those? Because I'm not sure that we have any data on those that I've kind of identified, and I would like to see in our discussion. So no response. I know everybody's working hard, so this is not a criticism there. It's what I would like to see so we can further that conversation, because we keep being asked about driving policy, which we should be doing. But we got to feel comfortable with the policies that we're driving also, and not just policies that are presented to us. Thank you for my little soapbox speech there.
Thank you. I think this has been enlightening and sobering, but I think the passion for continued search for leverage in order to truly benefit and support change is very clearly in evidence on this board. Commissioner, I want to thank you and all the staff who worked on helping us get to some points where we could face the hard questions, face our reality, and also nurture our determination to create a future for all of Kentucky students. Thank you so much. Board members, we have now one final item, a very pleasant one. It's the presentation of the 2025 Kevin C. Brown Strategic Award. The board voted at its December regular meeting to present this award to a district that has made notable efforts in supporting the development and successful implementation of localized accountability systems. This award is named for Kevin C. Brown, the current General Counsel for Jefferson County Public Schools. Mr. Brown previously held several prominent roles at the Kentucky Department of Education, including serving as Interim Commissioner for Education from December 2019 to September 2020. Brown's time at the department throughout 2020 was marked with significant challenges that called for strategic educational leadership and clear ongoing communication that was forward-thinking, action-oriented, and aimed at advancing efforts to educate, feed, and support Kentucky's 650,000 students during a global pandemic. The priority area for this award changes from year to year based on the desire of the board, and now invite Commissioner Fletcher to recognize the 2025 Kevin C. Brown Strategic Award recipient.
Thank you, Chair Robinson. And based on the board's direction, criteria for receiving the 2025 Kevin C. Brown Strategic Brown Award included: 1, notable efforts in supporting the development and/or successful implementation of a localized accountability system. 2, evidence of localized co-creation to define student success. This includes strong consideration of parental engagement, community partnerships, and non-academic factors affecting school quality and the overall schooling experience in the development of the local accountability system. And 3, evidence of collective commitment to create learning experiences that are relevant, authentic, and joyful for every learner. This includes efforts to design and promote vibrant learning experiences for all students, as well as professional development and support for staff focused on vibrant learning experiences. According to the winner's nomination, Bullitt County Public Schools leaders realize that the test scores alone were an incomplete picture of success. In 2016, a district-wide call to action asked, "What are we missing?" and which measures will truly reflect life-ready graduates. Over the next 2 years, teachers, parents, students, business partners, and community members and other community members came together to co-draft the board's aspiration statements, core values, and graduate profile, all anchored in real stories of local learners. That collaborative effort led to cohort-based professional learning and the launch of the Community Collaborators for Innovative Learning Team, or their CCILT, in 2021, culminating in fall 2024 with the formal establishment of the Community-Based Accountability Steering Committee. The district didn't just open the front door to community input, it invited the community to help redesign the house. BCPS recruited a 40-member committee that reflected the full spectrum of its community. What followed was an invitation to co-create a new foundation for accountability, one rooted in trust, vision, and community values. The CBA, or the Community-Based Accountability, began not with data, but with shared purpose. BCPS designed each session with intentionality, balancing structure, reflection, and responsiveness to ensure participants felt seen, heard, and valued. Community building first. Every meeting began with a community builder rooted in the district's graduate profile or core values. These short reflection prompts and table conversations created the psychological safety needed for participants to speak honestly, challenge assumptions, and build trust across roles. Co-design that evolved with the work. Each session was dedicated to co-creation of a refined set of community-based accountability pillars for BCPS's accountability system: student learning, physical and operational care, life readiness, engaged and well-rounded students, community collaboration and engagement, and student safety and well-being. Expectations for each pillar were identified through concrete descriptions of what it looks like when the pillar is alive in the system. Consistent feedback loops. Each session ended with a reflection. Participants noted what was working and what could be improved. This reinforced that this was their process, not just the district's. This ongoing process was shared with the wider community. As BCPS moved beyond compliance to embrace life readiness, authentic learning experiences shifted from rare exceptions to everyday practice. Through cohort-based professional learning, teachers have launched authentic learning experiences that immerse students in real-world challenges, culminating in vibrant student exhibitions where learners showcase their work to peers, family, and community partners. Early indicators show that this student-centered shift is fostering deeper connections between learning and life. Attendance at exhibitions is up. Survey feedback highlights increased motivation, and students report greater confidence in their own learning. As BCPS continues to refine its local indicators, the true impact will be measured not only in traditional data points, but also those representing the curiosity, agency, and community-minded spirit of its learners. The district is finalizing its locally co-created accountability pillars and launch a public-facing dashboard mapping each pillar to clear, measurable indicators. Steering committee subgroups will partner with district data teams to define student-friendly metrics for everything from life readiness to community collaboration, ensuring the dashboard speaks in plain language and invites ongoing feedback. Congratulations to Bullitt County Public Schools for receiving this award. And we have Superintendent Jesse Bacon is online with us, and I invite Jesse to share some remarks. Dr. Bacon, this is the second time I've seen you this week, I believe.
Lucky me, Commissioner. Lucky me. Thank you so much for those kind words. And I want to thank the entire Board of Education for recognizing our commitment to work collaboratively with our families, students, staff, and community leaders to clearly define what school and district success looks like for our community and to hold ourselves accountable to those expectations. We are proud of the commitment that we have to create meaningful, authentic learning experiences that are relevant and that spark student interest in every classroom in our district. And we're committed to building a local accountability system that brings transparency, trust, and actionable insights into the work that we're doing to increase community involvement and continuous improvement initiatives within our district. So we're proud of the work we've done. We know we have a lot of work left in front of us, and we appreciate the recognition from this team on the work that we're currently doing. So thank you very much.
Superintendent Bacon, we are certainly very proud of you and very appreciative of the opportunity to recognize and document a local community committed to being clear about its responsibility and expectation to support student achievement in regard to things that really, really matter. We've been saying a lot. It's every student, every child, their progress is precious because that's the hope that we have for our future and our future community. So we really appreciate your work. Thank you so much. We hope you'll be very forthcoming to let us know how we can support your efforts into the future. Thanks for joining us virtually. Look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations. Absolutely. Board members, we have had a really, really substantive, productive meeting today. I appreciate your attendance and the hard work of getting through a long agenda through virtual attendance. You've been really diligent in that regard. Thank you so much. I'd like now to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Steve Trimble will make that motion.
Is there a second?
Lou Young, second.
Thank you so much. We have on the table a motion to adjourn. Luther Sam, would you please call the roll?
Holly Bloodworth,
Holly Bloodworth, yes.
Harold McKinney,
Harold McKinney, yes.
Justin Pate, Julie Pyle,
Julie Pyle, yes.
Randy Poe,
Yes.
Sharon Robinson,
Sharon Robinson, yes.
Lee Todd,
Lee Todd, yes.
Steve Trimble,
Steve Trimble, yes.
and Lou Young.
Lou Young, yes.
Voting is complete.
And we are adjourned. Thank you so much.